What if the most powerful being in your dreams wasn't a monster, but a gentle guide? We're diving deep into the often misunderstood figure of Morpheus, exploring how his soft whispers shaped the very fabric of reality for mortals and gods. Prepare to have your perceptions of ancient mythology completely transformed, where a single forbidden name, whispered in the dead of night, shatters the veil between dreams. In the waking world, fulfilling an ancient prophecy that even the gods of Greek mythology feared to utter. Imagine the distant crash of waves against jagged cliffs, the faint toll of temple bells echoing through mist-shrouded valleys, the subtle scrape of iron on iron as ancient locks yield to trembling hands, and the soft hush of whispered oaths carried on the wind from forgotten shrines. You probably won't want to believe what you are about to hear. So before the tension gets too high, take a moment to like the episode and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. It helps me connect with you across the world. Now, close your eyes, imagine the ancient mountains, and let's unravel this epic tale together. You stand at the edge of a crumbling acropolis, the ordinary world of bustling markets and sun-baked olive groves fading behind you as twilight bleeds into the sky like ink on parchment. The air hangs heavy with the scent of wild thyme and smoldering myrtle, a perfume that clings to your skin as you ascend the weathered steps carved into the hillside. This is no mere hillside. It's the threshold to the forgotten temple of Oneros, a sanctuary buried in the folds of ancient Greece. Where heroes once sought visions from the deities of sleep, your sandals crunch against stones worn smooth by centuries of pilgrims, and the first stars prick the indigo dome above. Their light cold and watchful, as if they remember every secret uttered below. As you reach the summit, the temple reveals itself not in grandeur, but in quiet ruin, a colonnade of marble pillars veined with cracks, half swallowed by ivy that whispers against the breeze. You pause, heart steady, but senses sharpening. For this is where the story begins, in the ordinary flicker of a single flame. Inside, a forgotten priest kneels before a low altar, his robes threadbare and dusted with the sand of distant journeys. He is old, his face etched like the inscriptions on the surrounding walls, lines that speak of nights spent transcribing the elusive language of dreams. In his gnarled hands he clutches a wax tablet, stylus poised as if the very act of writing might capture what slips through mortal fingers. You draw closer, the cool stone floor sending a shiver up your legs, and watch as he murmurs incantations in a tongue that blends ancient Greek with the lilting cadence of local legends from the oracle at Delphi. Historically, the priest knows, the Delphic oracle once advised kings on matters of fate. Her prophecies delivered in riddles that echoed through the sacred groves, much like the dreams that now plague this man. But here, in this shadowed chamber, his work is solitary, born of a personal vow made under a blood moon. The priest's eyes, milky with age, fix on the flickering oil lamp, its flame dancing as if alive with unseen currents. He begins to record, his stylus scraping softly, the sound a rhythmic heartbeat against the silence. The dreams he scribes are no ordinary visions. They bleed into waking colors and shapes, seeping from the edges of sleep like water from a cracked vessel. Last night, he writes, a hero appeared, not one of the famed warriors of Greek mythology, like Achilles or Odysseus, but a nameless wanderer whose face shifted like mist. The hero spoke of Morpheus, the god of dreams, his name a forbidden utterance, banished from Olympus after a betrayal that scarred the pantheon. You lean in, the air growing thicker, laced with the faint, sweet rot of decaying papyri stacked in the corners. The priest's hand trembles as he etches the details. The hero's voice, a gentle whisper that coaxed forgotten memories to the surface, promising solace in exchange for a single truth. But as the stylus moves, something stirs. The flame gutters, casting elongated shadows that twist across the walls like living vines. You feel it, then a subtle pressure behind your eyes, as if the temple itself is exhaling. The priest pauses, his breath catching, and in that moment he utters the name aloud, Morpheus. The air hums, a low vibration that resonates in your chest, summoning echoes from the ether. This is the quirky secret of the god's domain. Morpheus's whispers carry a bizarre rule one whispered among the deities that to speak his name in a place of binding oaths invites his gentle touch, but at the cost of surrendering a piece of your waking self, a memory traded like currency in the halls of ancient mysteries. The priest continues, undeterred, his recordings growing frantic. The dream hero described a realm where sleep was not escape, but a labyrinth of soothing whispers, each one weaving heroes and deities into tapestries of what might have been. You see it unfold in his words. Rivers of liquid silver crossing under bridges of woven clouds. Stars falling not as omens of doom, but as soft invitations to deeper slumber. Yet, woven through the serenity is a thread of psychological tension, the hero's eyes, wide with unspoken dread, hinting at the prices paid for such peace. The priest's stylus falters. Ink blots the wax as a chill wind snakes through the temple. Carrying the distant toll of bells from a village below, a reminder of the world you left behind. As you stand there, the boundary blurs. Your own eyelids grow heavy, the whispers infiltrating your thoughts, gentle yet insistent. Like fingers tracing the curve of your spine. The priest looks up, his gaze locking with yours for the first time. And in his eyes you glimpse the omen that started it all, a broken oath from the time of the Titans, when Morpheus dared to dream for the gods themselves, only to be cast down for revealing their hidden fears. He sets the tablet aside, rising slowly, and gestures to a niche in the wall where a small obsidian idol rests. Its surface, smooth as polished night, etched with a single epigraph. Whispers bind what wakefulness breaks. You step forward, compelled, your fingers brushing the cool stone. It warms under your touch, pulsing faintly, and in that instant, the dream bleed begins. Visions flicker at the edges of your sight, fragments of Norse legends bleeding in, where dream weavers like the Norns spin fates in shadowed halls, their whispers echoing Morpheus's own. But these are Greek roots, ancient mysteries tied to the heroes who braved the underworld for one more night of rest. The priest nods, as if he expected you, and murmurs a proverb passed down through generations of seers, in the hush before sleep. The gods listen closest. The night deepens, the temple's silence broken only by the soft scratch of renewed writing. You feel the pull, the threshold crossing from observer to participant. As the whispers grow louder, inviting you into the gods' court, that a taboo lingers unspoken. To linger too long in this recording risks becoming part of the dream yourself. Your ordinary life dissolving into the epic scope of deities and forgotten oaths. The priest's final entry seals it, a prophecy that the banished name will summon not just solace, but a trial of the soul, where every gentle whisper demands a confession. But the question that remains is, what truth will you offer when Morpheus's voice first calls your name? The priest's words hang in the air like a veil, and as you withdraw your hand from the obsidian idol, the temple's breath stirs anew, drawing you deeper into its marble embrace. You move forward, the floor cool and unyielding beneath your feet, each step echoing faintly as if the stones themselves are listening. The chamber expands before you, walls lined with niches, holding faded frescoes of deities and repose-winged figures with eyes closed in eternal vigil. Their forms blending into the shadows that pool at the edges of the lamplight. This is the heart of the shrine, a nocturnal sanctum where the air vibrates with a subtle hum. Low and persistent, like the distant drone of bees in a hidden hive. You inhale deeply, and the scent of incense envelops you, thick curls of smoke rising from a bronze censer shaped like a slumbering griffin, its wings etched with veins of lapis lazuli. The fragrance is heady, a blend of myrrh and sandalwood that masks something subtler, more intimate. The sound of unseen breathing, rhythmic and close, as if the temple inhales in tandem with your own lungs. It starts as a whisper, this breath, emerging from the cracks in the marble, where faint veins of quartz gleam like frozen rivers under moonlight. You pause, ears straining, and realize the hum is not mechanical but alive, a collective sigh from the shrine's ancient. Bones built in the era when Greek mythology's heroes sought oracles not just for victory in war but for respite from the torment of sleepless nights haunted by the ghosts of fallen comrades. Historically, in the shadowed valleys of Arcadia, local legends tell of temples like this one, erected during the Mycenaean Age, around 1600 BCE, where priests invoked the Oneritha, dream spirits, to guide weary warriors through visions of peace after the Trojan campaigns. You feel that legacy now, as the incense swirls thicker, disguising the breaths that seem to emanate from the walls themselves. soft inhalations that quicken when you turn your head. The priest shuffles to a side alcove, lighting another lamp with a flint that sparks like a star omen, and gestures for you to follow. "The shrine remembers," he says, his voice a gravelly murmur. Every pilgrim who crossed its threshold, their exhales mingling with the god's own as you advance. The breathing grows more distinct, layered like voices in a chorus, some shallow and quick, others deep and languid, all weaving through the hum that resonates in your chest. You reach out, trailing fingers along a pillar, and the marble feels unnaturally warm, pulsing faintly as if fed by hidden aquifers of dream water. This is no illusion. In the lore of ancient mysteries, such shrines were said to be alive with the essence of Morpheus, the shaper of dreams among the deities, whose domain extended beyond Olympus to these earthly echoes. The quirky detail of his influence reveals itself here. The temple's breath carries a bizarre taboo, one known only to the initiated, that to mimic its rhythm invites Morpheus's whispers directly into your veins, but only if you hold your own breath for the count of 7 heartbeats. A ritual that trades a fragment of your vigilance for a glimpse of the divine court's secrets. You try it instinctively, lungs emptying as the world narrows to the hum. 1, 2. The incense sharpens, cutting through the disguise to reveal the raw undercurrent of respiration. Breaths not just from stone, but from the frescoes where painted heroes seem to stir, their chests rising in frozen animation. 3.4. A psychological tension builds, the air pressing against your skin like a lover's hesitant touch. And you wonder if this is the cost of the ordinary world's abandonment, the slow surrender to the epic cadence of sleep's realm. 5.6. Visions flicker at the periphery, a river crossing in your mind's eye, its waters blackened and still, reflecting not your face but the oracles. Her eyes promising trials ahead. 7. You exhale, and the breaths synchronize with yours, the hum swelling to a soothing lullaby that threads Norse legends into the tapestry tales of the dreamweavers in Valhalla were fallen. Heroes whisper oaths to Odin under similar veils of scented smoke. The priest nods approvingly, leading you to a low dais at the chamber's center, where a slab of pillowstone rests. Its surface pitted like the surface of the moon, worn by countless heads seeking solace. "Lie here," he instructs, "and let the breath guide you." You comply. The stone cradling your form with unexpected gentleness, cool at first, but warming as the temple's respiration envelops you. From this vantage, the ceiling arches high, painted with constellations that shift subtly. Stars aligning in patterns of sacred bargains, eclipses foretold, blood prices etched in faded gold. The incense coils around you, its disguise thinning. And now the unseen breathing reveals faces in the smoke, ethereal forms of threshold guardians, their mouths open in silent invocation, lips forming words from hymnal fragments long lost to time. You close your eyes, but sleep does not claim you. Instead, the hum intensifies, carrying snippets of proverbs from the stone-cut epigraphs encircling the dais. Breath binds the veil, exhale to unveil. The sounds layer upon themselves, distant waves crashing in auditory illusion, the chime of cedar wind bells from an unseen garden. The faint ring of iron as imagined chains loosen in the god's forgiving grasp. Psychological intrigue deepens. You sense the trickster's shadow lurking in the breaths, perhaps Hypnos himself, Morpheus's father, weaving illusions that test your resolve. A local legend surfaces in the priest's soft recounting as he circles the dais. In the hills of Boeotia, a hero once slept here for 7 nights, emerging with prophecies that toppled tyrants, but forever. Marked by the temple's breath, his own sighs carrying echoes of the divine. The quirky artifact on the dais, a small vial of silver sand, said to be ground from the wings of Morpheus's messengers, catches the lamplight. Its grains shifting without touch, each particle humming a note in the nocturnal symphony. You watch, transfixed, as the breaths quicken, disguising not just sound but emotion, a wave of calm laced with tension. The promise of gentle whispers undercut by the taboo of over-listening, where one might lose the boundary between self and shrine. The priest kneels nearby, his own breathing joining the chorus, shares a confessional aside in first-person hush. "I first heard it as a boy, This hum, and it called me back, night after night, until the dreams became my own. As the incense burns lower, the breaths coalesce into a single, enveloping rhythm, pulling you toward the wandering oracle's distant call, her demand for passage into the dreaming god's court echoing faintly through the stone. You rise slowly, the hum lingering in your ears like a half-remembered melody. The temple's breath now a companion, urging you onward through corridors that seem to exhale in welcome. But the question that remains is, will the oracle accept the temple's breath as currency for the lock of hair she seeks? The temple-esque breath follows you like a faithful shadow as you descend a narrow staircase spiraling into the earth, the air growing cooler and laced with the mineral temps of underground springs. Your footsteps echo softly, mingling with the persistent hum that now pulses in time with your heartbeat, guiding you toward the chamber where the wandering oracle awaits. Torchlight flickers from sconces carved into the walls, bronze holders shaped like coiled serpents, their eyes glinting with embedded garnets that catch the flame like captured stars. This descent marks the true crossing of the threshold. From the shrine's nocturnal embrace into the veiled corridors of the dreaming god's influence, where the ordinary world dissolves into the epic weave of Greek mythologies, ancient mysteries, you emerge into a cavernous hall, its ceiling lost in shadow, supported by columns of veined alabaster that weep faint droplets, pooling into shallow basins at their bases. The oracle stands at the far end, a figure cloaked in gossamer robes, the color of twilight. Her hair a cascade of silver threads unbound and wild, as if woven from moonlight itself. She is no fixed seer like those at Delphi. This is a wandering soul, one who roams the fringes of the known world, trading prophecies for tokens of the mortal coil. Historically, in the myths of ancient Greece, such itinerant oracles trace their lineage to the Sibyls, enigmatic women who delivered fates in the wilds of Cumae or the groves of Dodona, their words shaping the destinies of heroes like Aeneas, who sought guidance amid the ruins of fallen empires. She turns as you approach, her eyes milky orbs veined with gold fixing upon you with unerring precision, and the air stills, the temple's breath holding in suspense. Pilgrim, she intones, her voice a silken thread that unravels the silence. You seek passage into Morpheus's court, where the gentle whispers soothe the unrest of deities and mortals alike. You nod, the weight of the obsidian idol's warmth still lingering in your palm. She smiles faintly, a curve that holds both invitation and warning. The hall around you transforms subtly under her gaze. The basins ripple as if stirred by unseen winds, reflecting fragments of star omens constellations, aligning in patterns that echo sacred bargains from the time of the Olympians. She extends a hand, palm up, revealing nails etched with faint runes that glow faintly in the torchlight. The sleeper's bargain demands tribute, she explains, her tone methodical, building the epic cadence of ritual. A lock of your hair severed not with iron but with the breath of intention, for it carries the essence of your waking thread. The silken cord that binds you to the world above. You hesitate, fingers rising instinctively to the nape of your neck, where strands damp with the cavern's mist cling to your skin. This is the psychological tension of the threshold, the cost of entry, a piece of yourself offered to the god of dreams, echoing the blood prices paid by heroes in Norse legends, where warriors sacrificed locks to the Norns for visions of battles yet to come. As you comply, plucking a strand and holding it forth, she leans closer, her breath mingling with the temple's own, a cool exhalation scented with wild herbs and distant seas. The quirky detail of this bargain reveals itself in the oracle's lore. The lock must be whispered to before severance, a bizarre taboo among the deities. Attendance for hair holds not just life but echoes of unspoken oaths. Unwhispered, it unravels the dreamer's path turning. Morpheus's gentle whispers into labyrinthian snarls that trap the soul in eternal half-sleep. You murmur a vow to the strand. I seek the court's solace. Bearing the weight of forgotten truths, and she nods, accepting it with fingers that tremble slightly, as if the weight of your essence presses upon her. The hair vanishes into her robes, and in its place, she offers a small artifact, cedar amulet strung on a cord of woven flax, its surface inscribed with a hymnal fragment in archaic script. Threads of night weave the dawn estelle. You slip it over your head, and immediately the hall shifts. The air thickens with the scent of damp cedar and incense, sounds layering in, the distant rush of an underground river, The soft chime of obsidian chimes swaying in an unfelt breeze, the subtle creak of stones settling like a sleeper turning. The oracle gestures to an arched doorway at the hall's rear, veiled by curtains of hanging vines heavy with dew. Beyond lies the antechamber to the court, she says. The gods' messengers await, their feathers rustling like autumn leaves in a forgotten grove. You step forward, the amulet warming against your chest, and the psychological intrigue deepens. Visions tease at the edges of your sight-cursed relics glimpsed in the torchlight their surfaces etched with. Warnings of traded memories, the prices exacted for divine boons. The oracle follows at a distance, her presence a guardian shadow, recounting in a confessional whisper as if to herself. I once bargained my own sight for a night in the court, and the whispers, ... They linger, shaping what I see in the dark. Her words evoke the trickster's play, perhaps Onero's in disguise, testing your resolve with subtle illusions, the vines part of their own accord. Revealing a passage floored in polished obsidian that mirrors your form, distorted slightly, as if already touched by dream logic. The river's sound grows louder as you approach. Not a mere echo, but a true current crossing the threshold. Its waters visible now. It's flowing black and sluggish through a channel cut into the stone, bridged by slabs of flat granite worn smooth by eons of passage. Star omens flicker overhead, bioluminescent fungi on the ceiling mimicking the wheeling heavens, casting patterns that foretell eclipses and fateful shifts. You pause at the bridge, the oracle's voice rising behind you, cross with care. For the water drinks deeply of unspoken fears, and Morpheus's court demands honesty from those who enter. The sensory creep builds the damp chill of the air, the faint ring of iron from imagined distant forges where oaths are forged anew. The salt tang of the river mingling with the oracle's herbal breath. As you place a foot on the bridge, the amulet pulses, syncing with the temple's hum, and the whispers begin in earnest, gentle, soothing, threading through the rush of water like threads in a loom. Heroes of old, you recall, faced such crossings in the myths, like Orpheus braving the Styx for Eurydice. Their bargains laced with the consequence of loss. The oracle watches her silver hair catching the fungal light, and you sense the escalation. This passage is no mere step but the initiation into trials where every choice echoes with the gods. Consequential prices scars of forgotten nights owed silences that bind the tongue. The bridge holds firm, the river murmuring below, its surface rippling with reflections of the court's distant glow soft. Inviting, yet edged with the tension of what lies beyond. You reach the far side, turning to see the oracle nod once, her form already fading into the hall's shadows, the lock of hair, her silent payment. But the question that remains is, what memory will the river claim as you fully enter the dreaming god's domain? The bridge's far side opens into a vast expanse that defies the cavern's confines, the air shimmering as if heated by an unseen sun. Transitioning seamlessly from the river's chill to the dry hush of a dream-woven desert. You step forward, the obsidian floor giving way to fine grains that sift between your toes, warm and silken, under a sky domed with perpetual twilight, where the moon hangs low and bloated, casting silver light over undulating dunes. This is the lunar expanse of Morpheus's realm, a threshold landscape in Greek mythology where the boundaries of sleep stretch, like the sands of the Sahara in ancient tales, but here infused with the gods' gentle whispers that shape the very ground beneath you. The dunes rise and fall in gentle waves, their crests glowing faintly with phosphorescent veins, threads of silver and gold that pulse like arteries. Carrying the lifeblood of time itself, you trudge onward, the amulet at your chest humming in resonance with the shifting sands. Each step sinking slightly, as if the earth tests your weight, your resolve. The river's murmur fades behind, replaced by the soft susurrus of grains sliding against one another, a sound like whispered secrets exchanged in the halls of deities. Historically, in the lore of ancient mysteries, the Egyptians revered similar dream deserts in their myths, where the god Thoth inscribed fates on papyrus scrolls amid shifting sands, much like the heroes of Greek mythology who wandered the wastes of Libya seeking oracles from the underworld guide. Hermes Trismegistus, blending traditions in the shared tapestry of nocturnal visions. You crest a dune, pausing to catch your breath, and the landscape reveals its secrets. Beneath the surface, sacred sands shift like veins of time, exposing glimpses of buried epics, fossilized olive branches from Attic groves, shards of bronze helms from forgotten battles, all carried on currents that flow not with water but with the inexorable pull of dreams. The moon above wanes subtly, a celestial sign of the season of introspection, when in the myths, autumn eclipses heralded the descent into Morpheus's court, where oath-keepers demanded reckonings for pacts broken under starlit skies. Your shadow stretches long before you, distorted by the undulations, and you feel the psychological tension coiled tighter. The expanse feels infinite, yet intimate, as if the sands read your thoughts, sifting memories from the rivers told. The one it claimed a fleeting image of a childhood hearth now lost to the grains. Kneeling, you dig tentatively with your hands, the sand parting like flesh under a surgeon's blade, revealing a deeper layer where the veins converge. They throb faintly, silver filaments weaving through the pale expanse, and as you trace one, it warms. Guiding your fingers to a buried relic, a small cylinder of electrum, its surface etched with spiraling script that glows under the lunar light. This is the artifact of an oath once broken, a sacred bargain from the age of the Titans, when Prometheus, the trickster firebringer, swore fealty to Morpheus in exchange for dreams of freedom, only to shatter it by sharing those visions with mortals, incurring the blood price of eternal vigilance. You lift it carefully, the metal cool despite the sand's warmth, and unroll the inscribed scroll within parchment, treated with cedar resin. Its words in an archaic dialect. Oaths live in the cut, break them, and time's veins bleed. The quirky detail of this relic emerges as you hold it, in the domain of deities like Morpheus. Such cylinders possess a bizarre function, humming a lullaby when gripped too tightly. But only if the holder whispers a personal taboo, a louder rule that forces confession before revelation. Trading vulnerability for the artifact's power to summon echoes of the broken oath's consequences, like traded memories resurfacing as half-formed nightmares. You hesitate, the amulet pulsing insistently, and murmur a secret from your own life, one the river stirred, a promise unkept to a distant kin. The cylinder responds, its hum rising to a soothing melody that threads Norse legends into the air tales of Yggdrasil's roots. Delving through dream sands where fate weavers bound oaths with silver runes, their breaches causing the world tree's veins to shift and reveal hidden paths. Visions bloom from the scrollless script. You see the oaths breaking in epic scopa council on Olympus, where Morpheus, robed in mist and feathers, extended his hand to Prometheus, the air thick with incense, and the ring of iron hammers forging celestial chains. The trickster accepted, eyes gleaming with the fire of rebellion. But as the gentle whispers filled his mind with visions of unchained humanity, he faltered. The taboo of silence shattered when he uttered the dreams to a gathering of heroes in a labyrinthian hall. The sands around you respond, shifting violently now, unveiling more relics, obsidian daggers with hilts of carved ivory, depicting threshold guardians barring the way. Amulets strung with starmans, their beads like captured eclipses. Psychological intrigue deepens. You sense the cost of this discovery, the relic's weight pressing not just on your palms, but on your soul. As if Morpheus himself watches from the dune's crests, his presence a calm exhalation that builds suspense. A confessional interlude slips from your lips, unbidden. In the narrator's voice within, I once held a similar token in waking hours. It whispered truths I'd buried, pulling me into nights where sleep was both balm and burden. The sands settle, forming a shallow basin around you, walls inscribed naturally with proverbs from the relic's era. When stars shift, grief shifts with them. You pocket the cylinder, its hum fading to a whisper, and rise. The lunar dunes stretching onward toward a distant silhouette, a pavilion of woven clouds, hinting at the court's heart. The air carries sensory details, the dry rasp of grains against skin, the faint scent of salt from evaporated dream seas, the subtle creak of buried cedars groaning under the weight of time. As you press on, the veins pulse brighter, guiding your path like luminous rivers, but the broken oath's echo lingers, a soft warning in the wind, reminding you of the trials ahead, where every boon from the deities exacts its price, be it scars of revelation or the silence owed to gods who dream of mortal frailties. The moon dips lower, casting long shadows that dance like oath-keepers enforcing ancient laws. And you wonder if the relic's power will aid or ensnare you in the escalating choices to come. But the question that remains is, What fragment of Prometheus's broken vow will the sands entrust to you next? The dune's silver veins lead you inexorably toward the pavilion of woven clouds, but as you draw near, the sands part like a curtain, descending into a sunken hollow where steps of polished quartz spiral downward once more, inviting you into the earth's quieter depths. You follow the relic's hum vibrating softly in your pocket, syncing with the subtle shift in the air from an arid whisper to the moist hush of subterranean chambers, where the lunar light filters through fissures above, dappling the walls in ethereal patterns. This descent feels like another river crossing, not of water but of memory's current, carrying you toward the Pillowstone Chamber, sanctum buried in the folds of Morpheus's domain, where the echoes of ancient mysteries resonate eternally. The steps level out into a circular room hewn from seamless bedrock, its walls curving inward like the embrace of a colossal skull, veined with quartz that gleams like frozen tears. At the center looms the Pillowstone, a monolithic slab of pale limestone, pitted and eroded as if shaped by countless heads in repose, its surface undulating in soft waves that mimic the contours of sleep. You approach the air heavy with the scent of damp moss and faint incense, remnants of rituals long faded in the pavilions. Clouds seem to drift overhead through a skylight of natural crystal, casting shifting shadows that dance like star omens across the stone. This chamber in the lore of Greek mythology evokes the ancient practice of incubation at temples like Epidaurus, where historically from the 4th century, BCE pilgrims slept on sacred stones to receive healing dreams from Asclepius, the god of medicine, their visions blending with the whispers of deities to mend both body and soul. You circle the Pillowstone, fingers trailing its edge, and feel a subtle vibration, like the purr of a distant cat emanating from within. The quirky detail of this mythic artifact reveals itself as you lean closer. The Pillowstone holds a bizarre temperament, speaking only to those who rest their head upon it while holding breath against it. Taboo, pressing an ear not to the surface but to a hidden fissure etched with a single rune, a rule passed among oath-keepers, that replays voices in the tone of the long dead, but twists them slightly, infusing each echo with the listener's own unspoken fears. A consequence that trades clarity for psychological entanglement, much like cursed relics that bind the hearer to their revelations. Compelled, you kneel and position yourself, cheek against the cool, yielding stone, yielding, indeed. As it molds faintly to your form, warm now from the earth's core, you inhale the chamber's breath, a mix of cedar and salt from evaporated dream rivers. Press your ear to the fissure, the rune glowing faintly under your touch. The vibration swells, and then the voices begin. Soft at first, murmuring in cadences that evoke the heroes of old, their tones gravelly with the dust of unburied graves, as if the dead have never truly rested in the underworld's grasp. We walked the labyrinths of Crete, one voice intones a woman's timbre laced with the echo of Minoan flutes from local legends, seeking the Minotaur's heart only to find Morpheus waiting in the shadows, offering dreams of escape for the blood price of our names. The echoes layer upon themselves, chorus rising from the stone's depths, men with voices like cracking bronze, women whispering like wind through olive groves, all speaking of sacred bargains struck in the god's court. You hear a hero's confession, his words tumbling forth. I traded my shadow for a night of gentle whispers, but dawn returned it twisted, breathing twice when I did not. Psychological tension builds as the voices turn personal, sifting through your mind, like sands unearthing the memory the river clammed. Hearth's warmth now voiced by a figure long gone, their tone affectionate yet edged with reproach. Why did you leave the fire untended? The stone hums deeper, the fissure widening imperceptibly, and sensory details flood in, the damp chill seeping from the walls. The faint ring of iron from imagined chains binding Theseus in the labyrinth, the subtle creak of quartz as the chamber exhales in rhythm with the voices. A first-person interlude surfaces from the narrator's calm within you. I lay here once in waking trance, and the dead spoke my regrets aloud, turning solace into a mirror I could not shatter. The voices weave Norse legends into their tapestry codes of Valkyries choosing the slain, their whispers promising Odin's hall, but exacting the silence of the grave. Blending with Greek deities and a shared motif of fate weavers spinning threads across pantheons. Star omens flicker through the skylight and eclipse's shadow, passing briefly, darkening the chamber and sharpening the tones. A threshold guardian recounts barring Odysseus from deeper sleep, demanding an oath on his bow, the blood price a scar that wept dreams instead of blood. The pillowstone's surface warms further, almost pulsing as the voices crescendo into a ritual chant. Fragments of hymnal lines etched in your mind. Oaths live in the cut. Echoes in the stone. You shift, ear still pressed. In glimpse inscriptions on the walls, faded carvings of underworld guides leading pilgrims across stylized rivers. Their forms half-human, half-feathered, hinting at Morpheus's messengers. The quirky rule asserts itself more insistently now. As the taboo of direct listening nears breach, the voices twist. Infusing a bizarre anomaly, they begin to anticipate your thoughts, completing sentences you haven't voiced, like the relic in your pocket. It hums of Prometheus's fall, but will it save you from ... double quotes. The tension coils, epic scope, narrowing to intimate dread. The chamber's air thickening with incense ghosts, the soft lap of imagined waves from subterranean currents. One voice dominates, deep and resonant, like thunder muffled by pillows. We, the long dead yet never buried, guard the court's antechamber. Our unquiet rest a boon to those who listen without flinching. It speaks of a cursed relic nearby, a small obsidian orb half embedded. In the stone's base, its surface swirling with trapped eclipses, promising to summon the oracle's contradiction but at the cost of owed silence. A taboo that seals the lips against repeating the dead's truths. You reach for it tentatively, the voices urging and warning in equal measure. Their tones evoking the psychological intrigue of heroes like Heracles, who wrestled sleep itself in the myths, emerging scarred by visions that haunted his labors. The chamber's breath quickens, the skylight's light steadying post-eclipse. And the voices fade to a murmur, leaving you with the relic's weight in your hand, or is it the stone's illusion? The pillowstone cools, releasing you, but the echoes linger in your ears, lower threading through the hum of the amulet, pulling you toward the next descent, where feathers and gentle terrors await. But the question that remains is, which of these unburied voices will follow you into the moon's refusal of light? The pillowstone's echoes trail you like faint footsteps as you rise and press onward the chamber. Escort steps ascending now, toward a broader vault, where the skylight expands into a domed aperture, framing the moon's swollen face against a tapestry of emerging stars. The air lightens, carrying the subtle tang of ozone, as if the heavens themselves prepare for a shift. And you emerge into an open rotunda encircled by low walls of weathered granite, etched with celestial maps that align with the night above. This is the liminal terrace of Morpheus's realm, a plateau suspended between desert sands and dream court pavilions where the gods' influence bends the laws of light and shadow, drawing pilgrims deeper into the epic trials of Greek mythologies, ancient mysteries. You pace the circumference, the obsidian orb from the stone's base clutched in your hand, its swirls of trapped eclipses pulsing faintly, syncing with the relic's hum in your pocket. The moon hangs motionless, its craters like the eyes of watchful deities in the stars, prick the void in deliberate patterns of sacred bargains yet to unfold. Their alignments evoking the autumn season, when in the myths heroes like Jason consulted the Argonaut seer for voyages under similar skies. The terrace's floor, inlaid with mosaics of bronze and lapis, depicting river crossings and labyrinths, warms underfoot, and the air hums with anticipation. The pillowstone voices now distant murmurs urging you to witness what comes next. Abruptly, the moon refuses its light. A shadow creeps across its face, not from cloud, but from an unseen force, an eclipse born of divine whim, stealing the silver glow and plunging the rotunda into profound twilight. All sound vanishes with it. The sorceress of sands, the hum of artifacts, even the rhythm of your breath. Swallowed into a vacuum that presses against your eardrums like the weight of underwater depths. You stand frozen, the world reduced to tactile whispers, the grid of mosaic under your soles, the cool kiss of night air on your skin, the faint vibration of the orb in your palm. This silence is no mere absence. It's the gods' intervention, a motif recurring in Norse legends, where Ragnarok's omens silence the world before Loki's deceptions. Blending with Greek deities and tales of cosmic pauses that test the soul's endurance. In this void, Morpheus's unseen hand reshapes the dream you walk through. The terrace warps subtly at first, the granite walls softening like wax under flame, their etchings flowing into new forms, Rivers of liquid starlight carving paths across the stone, labyrinthine turns emerging from flat plains. You feel it before you see it, an invisible pressure guiding your steps, gentle yet insistent, like fingers tracing the curve of your spine in the dark. The eclipse deepens, the moon, a black disk rimmed in crimson. A blood price paid by the heavens for the gods' artistry. And the mosaics respond, tiles shifting to depict threshold guardians frozen mid-stride, their forms elongated by the reshaping. Historically, local legends from the island of Kos recount eclipses during the Hellenistic period. Around 300 BCE, when dream incubators at Asclepius's temples interpreted the darkened skies as Morpheus's call to heroes, urging them to surrender waking illusions for visions of truth, much like the silent trials faced by Theseus in the Minotaur's maze. You navigate this new landscape instinctively, the unseen hand nudging you toward a central altar that materializes. From the floor, a pedestal of cedar wood veined with obsidian, topped by a basin filled with what appears to be quicksilver rippling without cause. The silence amplifies your inner world. Psychological tension coils as memories surface unbidden. The rivers claim the broken oath, Echor, shaped now into vivid scenes. You see yourself as a hero crossing a starlit river, but the waters reflect not triumph, but the cost to trade it. Memory of laughter turned to ash. The orb in your hand warms, its trapped eclipses aligning with the sky's own. And the quirky detail of Morpheus's touch reveals itself. The god's hand, though unseen, leaves a bizarre trace on those it reshapes a faint, iridescent feather imprint on the skin, a taboo among the deities that marks the bearer as dream-bound, granting the ability to walk through illusions but exacting the price of echoed heartbeats, where each step syncs with the pulse of the underworld, drawing underworld guides closer with every stride. You glance at your arm, and there it is, a soft glow, feather-shaped, tingling as the hand guides you to dip your fingers into the basin. The quicksilver clings, cool and alive, reforming around your hand into threads that weave through the air, pulling the terrace's edges inward, collapsing distances in a slow, deliberate fold. Sensory creep builds in the silence. The cedar's resinous scent sharpens, mingling with the metallic temps of the basin. The air thickens, damp as if from a distant river's mist. The subtle creak of reshaping stone echoes internally like bones settling in sleep. A confessional whisper rises from within, the narrator's voice threading through the void. In such silences, I once felt the hand myself, reshaping regrets into paths I dared not tread alone. The dreamscape solidifies a labyrinth of low hedges grown from the mosaics, their leaves whispering soundlessly, paths curving toward illusory pavilions where oath-keepers wait with scrolls of forgotten pacts. Star omens re-emerge faintly, post-eclipse flickers guiding your way, but the hand's pressure builds suspense. Epic cadence in its calm method. It leads you past a cursed relic half buried in the hedge. Bronze lyre strung with hair from broken oaths, its strings vibrating without touch, promising hymnal fragments like when stars shift. Grief shifts with them, but silent now, awaiting the eclipse's end. You turn a corner, the feather mark pulsing, and glimpse a figure ahead in Oracle's shadow, perhaps the wandering one returned, her silver hair catching the crimson rim. The reshaping accelerates. The labyrinth tightens walls, brushing your shoulders with the texture of feathers, soft yet confining. The psychological intrigue peaking as illusions test your choices. Do you follow the hand-s pull toward the basin-s glow, or veer toward a whispered taboo in the hedge's depths? The deity's logic asserts itself. Miracles like this carry consequence. Scars of reshaped realities where the ordinary world blurs forever. Ode silences to the god who mends dreams with unseen grace. As the eclipse wanes, a sliver of light pierces the black sound trickling back, the first distant chime of temple bells, the hush of wind. Through hedges but, the hand lingers a final reshape, etching a star omen into the path ahead, pulling you toward the river beneath thought. But the question that remains is, what form will the unseen hand take when sound returns to claim its due? The eclipse's sliver widens, sound reclaiming the terrace in gradual waves, the chime of bells. Resolving into clarity, the wind's hush swelling to a breeze that rustles the labyrinths. Hedges and the unseen hand releasing its grip with a final featherlight brush against your shoulder. You emerge from the maze's twists, the mosaics reforming into a broad path that slopes gently downward. the rotunda's walls parting to reveal a chasm veiled in mist, where the air turns cool and laced with the briny scent of subterranean waters. This descent pulls you toward the river beneath thought, a hidden current that flows not through stone but through the folds of consciousness, a recurring motif in Greek mythology, East's ancient mysteries, where heroes like Aeneas crossed shadowed streams to consult Sibylline shades, their reflections holding truths the waking mind recoils from. You reach the chasm's edge, peering into the gloom where the mist swirls like exhaled dreams, and the path bridges it with slabs of flat basalt, slick with condensation that gleams under faint starlight, filtering from above. The amulet at your chest warms its inscription. Threads of night weave the dawn estelle. Pulsing in time with the relic's hum, now joined by the orbs, subtle swirls all sinking as if attuned to the river's unseen flow. The water below is invisible, yet its presence presses upward, a psychic tide that tugs at your thoughts, stirring fragments of the pillowstone's echoes and the sand's veins. Historically, in the local legends of the Eleusinian mysteries from the 7th century, BCE, initiates cross symbolic rivers during their rites of passage, drinking from streams said to dissolve the barriers between mortal and divine, much like this current that erodes the edges of self-blending, the trials of deities.
Ow.
With the pilgrim's inner voyage, you step onto the bridge, the basalt firm but yielding slightly, as if the stone breathes with the river's rhythm. And immediately the mist thickens, enveloping you in a veil that muffles the world. The crossing begins not with sight, but with sensation. A cool draft rises. It's carrying the faint, metallic temps of memories, alloy copper from forgotten coins, silver from traded oaths, iron from the ring of ancient forges. Your reflection appears in the mist's heart, not on water but suspended like a mirror of fog. Your form sharp at first, then distorting as the current stirs beneath. Psychological tension coils as the bridge narrows. The chasm's depths whispering motifs of fate, star omens glimpsed through the mist. Faint eclipses replaying in miniature, sacred bargains etched in the vapor like fleeting inscriptions. The reflection shifts before you do. Its eyes open first, wide and luminous, gazing back with a knowing that pierces the calm. You freeze, heart quickening, but the methodical cadence of your steps continues, compelled by the artifact's hum. This unseen current of memory flows stronger now, its waters lapping at the bridge's undersides in auditory illusions, soft splashes that echo the river Styx's somber flow. Where underworld guides ferried souls for obels, but here the toll is introspection, a blood price paid in resurfaced regrets. The reflection's mouth moves silently, forming words you almost hear, a proverb from the myths. Oaths live in the cut, its lips curving in a smile that mirrors none of your own expressions. Sensory details sharpen in the mist, the damp cling to your skin, the subtle creak of basalt underfoot. The incense goes from the temple mingling with the river's brine, creating a heady perfume that blurs the boundary between breath and thought. As you advance, the current's pull intensifies, the mist coiling around your legs like curious tendrils. And the reflection evolves. It gestures independently, pointing to shadows in the chasm where labyrinthine paths twist below, hinting at threshold guardians waiting to enforce taboos. The quirky detail of this river emerges in its bizarre rule. A secret among the deities, attendance reflections in its flow can speak only in reverse, unraveling truths backward from consequence to cause. But only if the crosser whispers a personal omen, allowed a function that grants glimpses of alternate fates yet exacts the cost of echoed silences. Where the river drinks the unspoken words, leaving the pilgrim's voice hollow for a span of 7 breaths. You test it. Murmuring a star omen from your journey, the moon's refusal births the hand's design, and the reflection responds. Like a reflection reversed, like a recording played backward. Engized et signa et thrib, lasware sinum, eht. Resolving in your mind to the moon's refusal, births the hand's design. But layered with a deeper revelation, the broken oath of Prometheus twisted not by fire, but by dreams stolen from Morpheus's court. Visions cascade from the reflection's eyes. You see heroes of old navigating similar crossings, Odysseus consulting Tiresias in Hades' streams, his shade's gaze opening first to foretell trials. Blended with Norse legends, where the river Jill barred the path to hell, its waters reflecting the fates woven by the Norns, their backward speeches unraveling Ragnarok's threads. It's the psychological intrigue deepens. The current tugs at your core, surfacing the memory the river previously claimed a hearth's warmth, now animated in the mist, the figure stepping from the reflection to walk beside you, their eyes open in perpetual watch. Whispering confessional fragments. I guarded that fire once, but let it fade for dreams of greater lights. The bridge sways gently. Not from wind, but from the current's swell, and you grip the orb tighter, its eclipses aligning with the reflection's gaze. Pulling motifs of cursed relics into view, a submerged amulet below, its chain glinting. It's promising to bind the river's voice, but tabooed for those who stare too long, lest the reflections swap places. A first-person interlude threads through the mist. The narrator's calm voice surfacing. I crossed once in waking reverie. My reflection's eyes taught me the weight of unspoken crossings, where every glance exacts its quiet due. The air cools further, the mist parting briefly, to reveal inscriptions on the bridge as support stone, cut epigraphs from oath-keepers. When stars shift, grief shifts with them, their letters glowing faintly, guiding your midpoint. Sensory creep builds. The brine sharpens to salt on your tongue. The basalt's texture roughens like the skin of ancient serpents. The distant ring of iron from underworld forges harmonizing with the current's lap. The reflection quickens its pace ahead, turning to face you fully its form. Semi-translucent eyes conveying the epic scope of Morpheus's logic. Miracles of passage carry consequence. Scars of inverted truths where the self-fragments owed silences to the God who flows beneath all thoughts. You near the bridge's end, the mist thinning to reveal the far bank, a ledge of cedar roots twisting upward, leading to veiled arches hinting at the sleepless gods' tales. The reflection merges back into the vapor, eyes closing last, but its backward whisper lingers. Unraveling a hint of Hermes' story, the trickster's voice in reverse, promising humiliations born of mortal dreams. But the question that remains is, what inverted truth from the current will Hermes reveal when the crossing completes? The bridge's end deposits you on the cedar root ledge. The mist from the river beneath thought coiling upward like reluctant fingers, reluctant to release their hold on your inverted reflections. You climb the twisting roots, their bark, rough and resinous, under your palms, carrying the faint woody scent that mingles with the lingering brine, guiding you into a grove where bioluminescent vines drape from arched boughs, casting a soft verdant glow. This is an interstitial glade in Morpheus's court, a pause between crossings where messengers of the deities convene, the air humming with the afterecho of the current's backward truths, pulling you deeper into the psychological weave of ancient mysteries that bind heroes to their gods. You pause amid the vines, the orb swirls dimming as if sated by the journey, and a figure materializes from the shadows, slender and swift. Clad in a tunic of iridescent feathers that shift colors with his movements, a caduceus staff in hand, twined with living serpents that whisper rather than hiss. This is Hermes, the trickster and herald of Greek mythology, his winged sandals hovering inches above the root-strewn ground, eyes sparkling with the mischief of one who traverses realms without cost. He circles you once, a playful wind stirring the vines. His voice emerges smooth and lilting, like the chime of distant bells carried on a trade wind. "The pilgrim of whispers," he says, "you've crossed the thought of her with eyes open first, a rare feat, even for heroes who braved the Styx. But to proceed, you must hear a tale of humiliation, one that veils the god's gentle core in mortal folly." You nod, settling against a root that cradles your form like the pillowstone's echo. And Hermes perches nearby, his staff tapping the ground to summon illusory fireflies that dance in patterns of star. Omens faint eclipses replaying the moon's refusal, motifs of fate weavers spinning threads across the glade. Historically, in the local legends of Arcadia from the 8th century, BCE, Hermes was revered as the patron of travelers and thieves. His shrines dotting the wild hills where shepherds recounted how he guided Perseus to the Gree, shared eye blending cunning with divine favor in tales that echoed through the Peloponnesian festivals. Here, in this grove, he embodies the threshold guardian, his temperament ever shifting, but tonight he serves as storyteller, unraveling the thread of Morpheus's hidden shame to prepare you for the feathers ahead. Leaning in, Hermes begins, his words methodical yet laced with epic cadence, building suspense as the fireflies pulse in rhythm. Long before the Olympians settled their thrones, when the Titans still whispered of rebellion, Morpheus grew weary of his ethereal court. The god of dreams, shaper of visions for deities and mortals alike, yearned for the crude tangibility of mortality, the ache of flesh, the weight of unfiltered days, the silence unbroken by endless whispers. In a sacred bargain struck under a blood moon, he sought to dream himself mortal, weaving a cocoon of his own feathers and obsidian threads to bridge the divine chasm. The glade responds. Vines rustle softly, mimicking the sound of weaving looms from ancient halls. And you feel the psychological tension stir the god's vulnerability exposed. A taboo among the deities where even sleep's master crave the ordinary world's grit. Hermes' eyes gleam as he continues, gesturing with his staff to conjure faint illusions in the air. Morpheus in his pavilion, a figure of mist and plumage, plucking feathers from his wings itch, one a quirky artifact in its own right, bizarre in function, for they could fold reality when burned. But only under a personal oath whispered to the flame, a rule that demanded the burner reveal a hidden fear, trading the miracle of transformation for the consequence of amplified dread. Where the dream turned inward and devoured the dreamer's resolve, he burned them one by one, Hermes recounts, each pyre releasing curls of smoke scented with cedar and salt, the flames ringing like iron on anvil as the taboo took hold. Morpheus confessed his isolation, the endless parade of heroes' nightmares. The deities' restless slumbers and, the feathers complied, wrapping him in a shroud that pulled him earthward. The illusion sharpens. You see Morpheus descending, his form condensing into human Giza wanderer in a dusty agora. Skin bronzed by an imagined sun, feet calloused on cobblestones worn by the feet of Athenian philosophers. He tasted bread, its crust cracking under teeth that felt true pain. He bartered with merchants' coins, cold in palms that sweated. He slept not as god, but as man in a straw pallet under olive boughs, the river of thought now a mere stream he crossed by ferry. Yet the psychological intrigue unraveled swiftly. The failure came at dawn, Hermes says, his voice dropping to a confessional hush, the fireflies dimming as if in sympathy. Mortality's veil thinned too soon. Whispers infiltrated his waking hours, gentle at first, then insistent, reshaping the agora into labyrinths where threshold guardians my own kin barred his path with riddles of his divine past. He tried to oath his way free, but the blood price mounted, traded memories of godly eternity for fleeting mortal joys, only to find the joys hollow without the court's depth. A first-person interlude slips from Hermes' lips. Mirroring the narrator's intimacy, I watched from the winds, unseen, and pitied him for in trying to escape his essence. He humiliated not just himself, but the balance of dreams, forcing Hypnos to mend the tears with silences owed across realms. The tale escalates. Morpheus in his mortal shell encountered a fate weaver in a marketplace oracle, her paradox. Revealing the taboos but the bizarre temperament of his dreamed flesh, which refused true rest eyelids. Fluttering with visions of Olympus, turning every nap into a cursed relic of half-truths. Heroes passed him by, unaware, their own quests intersecting his, a Perseus-like figure brushing shoulders, mistaking the god's whispers for madness. The god faltered, attempting a river crossing back to divinity. But the current inverted his reflection, showing not a mortal return, but eternal limbo. Eyes opening to the failure's scar feather embedded in his palm, pulsing with the court's call. The illusion fades, the glade returning to verdant hush. But Hermes' words linger, threading Norse legends into the narrative tales of Odin sacrificing an eye for wisdom, only to find the well's visions mocking his one-sided gaze. A parallel humiliation that echoed Morpheus's folly across pantheons. Sensory details envelop you, the vine's damp texture against your back, the subtle creak of roots settling like a sleeper's sigh. The incense of burnt feathers ghosting the air, sharp with psychological tension, the gods attempt a mirror to your own journey, where every boon carries the risk of unraveling. Star omens flicker in the fireflies, an eclipse's shadow passing, reminding of sacred bargains costs, scars of attempted escapes. Ode silences to the deities who watch mortals flirt with their realms. Hermes rises, staff tapping once more, scattering the lights. That failure bound him tighter to his throne, he concludes, but gifted the court with deeper whispers, born of tasted loss. Now, pilgrim, claim what follows from his plumage. The glade stirs, vines parting to reveal scattered feathers glinting on the ground, their iridescence calling like the next threshold. But the question that remains is, which of these feathers will summon the gentle terror that knows your name? The glade's vines part fully now, the bioluminescent glow intensifying as if Hermes' departure has ignited the air with latent energy in you. Kneel amid the root-strewn floor, eyes drawn to the scattered feathers that litter the earth like fallen stars. Each one shimmers with an inner light, iridescent hues shifting from deepest indigo to soft pearl as you approach. Their barbs fine as spider silk, yet resilient, carrying the faint, ethereal scent of distant rain on marble. This is the plumage of Morpheus himself, shed in the wake of his mortal humiliation. A sacred offering in the court's logic where deities' losses become pilgrims' trials, weaving the epic scope of Greek mythology into personal reckonings with ancient mysteries. You reach for the first feather, your fingers brushing its quill, and it trembles slightly, as if alive with the god's lingering breath, syncing with the amulet's pulse, and the orb swirls in your other hand. The collection begins methodically, one by one, as the glade's hush deepens. The vines swaying in an unfelt breeze that whispers motifs of fate-weaving threads of cedar resin and salt mist, echoing the river crossings you've endured. Historically, in the local legends of the island of Samothrace from the 6th century, BCE mystery cults revered such feathers as tokens from the Kaberi gods' winged messengers who guided initiates through nocturnal rites, their plumage collected in rituals to summon visions of safe passage for heroes like the Argonauts, blending divine favor with the psychological weight of what was invoked. As you gather them 5, then 7, their weight negligible, yet mounting in your palm like accumulated secrets, the air thickens. Laced with the subtle ring of iron from imagined distant chains, the creak of boughs overhead like a sleeper's turning. The feathers align naturally in your grasp, forming a loose fan that hums a low, soothing melody. Gentle whispers threading through the notes. Fragments of hymnal lines from the gods' court oaths live in the cut intoned in voices that evoke the pillowstone's echoes. Psychological tension builds subtly. Each feather seems to know you, its barbs catching faintly on your skin, drawing no blood, but stirring memories, the broken oath's veins in the sands. The reflection's inverted eyes, resurfacing as half-formed images that dance at the periphery of your sight. With the 8th feather in hand, the collection completes its circuit, and the summoning stirs. The glade's glow pulses brighter, star omens flickering through the canopy in patterns of impending eclipses. And from the vines emerges the gentle terror of form coalescing from mist and shadow. Humanoid, yet elongated, its body draped in translucent veils that billow like dream smoke, face obscured by a mask of woven feathers mirroring your own collection. It knows your name. The whispers coalesce into a soft utterance of it, not spoken but felt in the chest. A vibration that resonates with the relic's hums, pulling you into the intimate cadence of Morpheus's domain. This terror is no monstrous fiend but a serene apparition, its movements fluid and unhurried, glowing softly behind the mask fixed on you with a calm that belies the epic stakes. A threshold guardian born of the god's plumage to test the collector's worth. The quirky detail of these feathers reveals itself now, a bizarre function tied to the dream's messenger. When gathered in sets of 7 or more, they summon such terrors not through incantation, but through the holder's heartbeat, taboo among the deities where the rhythm must remain steady. For any falter, be it fear or haste, amplifies the terror's gentleness into a psychological snare, trading the miracle of revelation for the consequence of echoed names. Where the summoner hears their own voice repeated back in infinite loops, a cursed relic effect that binds the tongue in owed silence until the terror deems the trial past. Your pulse quickens instinctively, but you steady it, the fan of feathers warming in your grip, and the terror glides closer. Its veils brushing your arm with the texture of cool silk, scented with incense from forgotten temples. It circles you once, the glade responding roots, twisting upward like labyrinth walls. Vines forming arches etched with proverbs. When stars shift, grief shifts with them, and the whispers intensify, naming not just you, but fragments of your journey, the temple's breath, the lock of hair surrendered, the river's claim. Sensory creep envelops the moment, the damp moss underfoot yielding like the pillowstone, the faint lap of imagined waters from the current below, the salt tank sharpening as the terror exhales, its breath a gentle wind that carries Norse legends into the air tales of Draugr, rising from barrows their whispers knowing the names of intruders. Blending with Greek heroes who faced similar shades in Hades' halls, their trials escalating with each named truth. A confessional interlude rises from the narrator's voice within, soft and methodical. I collected such feathers in a dream long past, and the terror named my hidden scars, turning solace into a mirror that reflected not escape but embrace. The terror pauses before you, extending a veiled hand, and you offer the fan. It accepts, weaving the feathers into its mask, each integration releasing a burst of light that illuminates. The glade's depths, pavilions of cloud in the distance, oathkeepers standing sentinel with scrolls of sacred bargains. The naming continues, the terror's voice emerging now as a chorus of gentle whispers. Recounting your crossings, you stood where the moon refused, crossed where thoughts inverted. Heard the dead unburied, each step a blood price paid in whispers, psychological intrigue peaks. The terror's calm facade cracks, subtly revealing the god's own humiliation echoed in its form. Morpheus's failed mortality mirrored in the apparition's serene dread. A reminder that even deities bear the costs of their boons, scars of vulnerability traded for the court's eternal weave. The fan fully integrated, the terror bows once, its mask now a mosaic of your collection. And the glade shifts, the labyrinthine vines retracting to reveal a descending path paved in obsidian shards, leading toward the still breath's depths. Star omens align overhead, an eclipse's shadow passing harmlessly, affirming the passage earned. The terror lingers a moment, its eyes conveying the logic of Morpheus's realm. Miracles of summoning carry consequence. Not violence, but the quiet erosion of boundaries. Where names known become threads in the fate weaver's loom, pulling heroes deeper into the divine tapestry. As it fades back into the vines, the whispers soften to a lullaby, echoing Hermes' tale, but the path beckons, the air growing thicker with the pulse of waiting walls. But the question that remains is, how will the labyrinth of the still breath respond to the name it now knows? The terror's fade leaves the glade in resonant quiet, the vines retracting fully to expose the obsidian sharded path that winds downward. Its edges jagged, yet inviting, like teeth parted in a sleeper's sigh. You step onto it, the shards smooth underfoot despite their gleam, carrying the faint warmth of the feather's integration. The amulets hum now, a steady undercurrent sinking with the relics in your grasp. The descent steepens, the air cooling to a damp hush as bioluminescent fungi on the walls cast elongated shadows, guiding you into the labyrinth of the still breath, a coiled warren in Morpheus's court, where the god's influence turns stone into living pause, left echoing the epic trials of Greek mythology's heroes who navigated such mazes, not with maps, but with the pulse of their own resolve. The corridor unfolds before you, walls of polished basalt curving inward, their surfaces veined with quartz that throbs faintly, like arteries beneath skin. You advance, and the first exhalation follows a soft, delayed rush of air from behind, as if the passage inhales your presence and exhales only after you've passed, a breath held in deference to the intruder's tread. The sound is intimate, almost personal, carrying the scent of cedar deep underground, and the subtle salt of evaporated rivers, motifs that recur like leitmotifs of your journey. The thought current's inversion, the sand's shifting veins. Each step echoes then, is answered by the walls. Release building a rhythm that syncs with your heartbeat slow, and deliberate the pulse visible now in the quartz. Glowing brighter with every exhale, turning the labyrinth into a living organism attuned to your cadence. Historically, in the local legends of Knossos on Crete, from the Minoan era around 2000 BCE, the great labyrinth built for King Minos served not just as prison for the Minotaur, but as a rite of passage for heroes like Theseus, where initiates traversed its coils under the guidance of Ariadne's thread. Their breaths measured against the stone's silence to invoke divine favor from Dionysus, blending mortal peril with the deity's watchful breath. You feel that legacy here, the corridor branching subtly left to a shadowed alcove, right to a narrowing vein, but the exhalations guide you, urging the central path with puffs of warmer air scented with incense ghosts, the psychological tension coiling as the walls close in, the pulse quickening to match yours when doubt flickers in your mind. The still breath's quirk reveals itself as you press on. This labyrinth, an artifact of Morpheus's design, possesses a bizarre temperament, exhaling not mere air but echoes of the walker's unspoken thoughts, a taboo among the Oathkeepers, where the walls listen first, then respond with delayed breaths that replay the intruder's heartbeat in reverse. A function granting glimpses of inner labyrinths, alternate choices branching like the paths, but exacting the blood price of amplified pulse, where the heart races until the walker confesses a hidden fear aloud, trading the miracle of navigation for the consequence of echoed vulnerabilities, scars that linger as whispers in the quiet after. You choose the central fork, the walls exhaling in unison behind, your quartz veins pulsing crimson now, sinking so precisely that you feel the rhythm in your chest, a shared heartbeat that blurs self and stone. Sensory creep intensifies. The basalt's texture roughens under your trailing fingers like the hide of a dormant beast. The air thickens with damp cedar, mingling with the faint ring of iron from distant forges where sacred bargains are reforged. Star omens filter through ceiling fissures, faint constellations aligning in eclipse patterns that cast dancing lights on the pulsing walls. The exhalations grow layered, your own breath, joined by the delayed sighs, carrying snippets of the terror's naming, your own voice murmured back in gentle distortion. Threading Norse legends into the hush, tales of the Norns weaving fates in echoing halls, their breaths pausing mid-thread to measure the hero's resolve, blending with Greek deities in a tapestry of consequential pauses. A branch tempts to the left, the walls there exhaling warmer, inviting. But the pulse warns quickening in that direction, a psychological snare where the reverse heartbeat begins faintly. Your thrum played backward like the river's reflections. Unraveling a memory, the temple's initial whisper, now echoed as a question of why you sought the court's solace. You veer right instead, the corridor narrowing to shoulder width. The exhalations brushing your back like hesitant touches, building suspense in their methodical delay. A confessional interlude surfaces from within, the narrator's voice calm amid the pulse. I wandered these coils once in fevered sleep. The wall's breath mirrored my fears, turning the still into a storm I had to name to calm. The quartz throbs brighter, illuminating faint inscriptions, stone-cut epigraphs from fate weavers. When stars shift, grief shifts with them, their letters seeming to breathe with the walls, urging confession to steady the rhythm. Deeper in, the labyrinth coils tighter, paths intersecting in illusions of dead ends that part upon approach, the exhalations revealing hidden doors with puffs scented like the oracle's herbs. The quirky rule asserts, as your heartbeat falters at a crossroads, fear of the unknown spiking, the walls respond, exhaling your pulse in reverse, the sound of bizarre arrhythmia that amplifies dread. Visions branching, one path to the sleepless gods' further humiliation, another to ash and perfume's restoration. You halt, the air stilling around you, and whisper the fear aloud. The quartz whispers may unmake me, and the rhythm evens, the exhalations softening to soothing sighs, releasing the blood price as the pulse sinks once more. The walls yielding a small alcove with a cursed relic, a silver vial of still breath, corked with obsidian, promising to pause time's flow but tabooed for overuse, lest the heart forget its beat entirely. The corridor widens ahead, the pulse steadying to a lullaby rhythm, pulling you toward the oracle's distant paradox, where petals and truths await. Motifs recur, a faint river's lap in the exhalations. Star omens guiding the quartz glow, the gentle terror's name echoed in the sighs. The epic cadence builds, the labyrinth's logic clear miracles of passage carry costs, not chains, but the quiet binding of breath to stone. Where heroes emerge changed, their heartbeats forever attuned to the deity's watchful pause. As the walls exhale in harmonious delay, the path straightens toward light. But the reverse pulse lingers faintly, hinting at contradictions to come. But the question that remains is, what paradox will the oracle cough forth when your heartbeat reaches her chamber? The labyrinth's final exhale propels you forward, the obsidian shards giving way to a smoother incline that levels into a domed antechamber. Its walls of veined marble, arching high, etched with spiraling runes that catch the faint glow of embedded quartz, pulsing in the way. After rhythm of your heartbeat, you enter the oracle's sanctum, the air shifting from the still breath's hush to a warmer, Floral undercurrent petals scattered across the floor like fallen stars, their edges curling softly in the draft from unseen vents. This is the seer's hollow in Morpheus's court, a nexus where prophecies bloom and wither. Drawing on the epic weave of Greek mythologies, ancient mysteries, where heroes sought truths that bent the gods themselves. The oracle awaits at the chamber's heart, enthroned on a low dais of woven cedar branches, her form shrouded in robes of translucent silk that shift like mist. Over water's silver hair unbound and streaked with threads of gold that mimic the star omens overhead fissures. In the dome, allowing slivers of celestial light to pierce, aligning in patterns of sacred bargains yet to be struck. She is ancient, yet ageless, skin pale as pillow stone, eyes veiled by a blindfold of black feathers from the god's plumage, the same iridescence that summoned the gentle terror. As you approach, she stirs a subtle cough escaping her lips. Not harsh but resonant like the rustle of leaves in a forgotten grove, and a single petal flutters forth, landing at your feet, its surface etched with faint glowing script that fades as you watch. She speaks then, her voice a paradox woven into the air, words tumbling in cadences that contradict themselves, even as they reveal. The path you walk ends where it begins, pilgrim in the river's eye that sees without sight the labyrinth's heart that beats still in motion. You kneel closer, the petals multiplying with each cough, soft, velvety blooms in shades of crimson. An indigo, carrying the scent of wild thyme and distant seas, motifs recurring from your crossings, the thought current's brine, the sand's silver veins. The chamber responds. The marble walls hummed faintly, echoing her words in reverse, like the labyrinth's breaths. Building psychological tension as the contradictions layer truths that soothe yet unsettle, gentle whispers laced with the weight of unspoken costs. Historically, in the local legends of the Delphic oracle during the classical Greek period around 500 BCE, the Pythia inhaled vapors from a chasm to deliver prophecies and ecstatic riddles, her words guiding kings and heroes like creases through wars and exiles, often coughing forth laurel leaves as signs from Apollo, blending divine inspiration with the earth's hidden fumes in rituals that tested the listener's wit. Here, in Morpheus's realm, her coughs birth petals instead, each one a vessel for the court's secrets, and she leans forward, blindfold tilting as another escapes her throat, this one unfurling mid-air, to reveal a map of your journey-twisted paths from temple to glade, marked with the terror's naming. The truth not even Morpheus can sleep with, she intones, her voice methodical, epic cadence rising as the petals swirl around you like a living veil, is the fracture in his own dream, the moment when the god of visions beheld his reflection in the river beneath thought and saw not eternity, but an end, woven by fate weavers beyond Olympus. Another cough, petals cascading now, and the revelation unfolds in the myths. Morpheus, shaper of dreams for deities and mortals, once gazed into that current during his mortal attempt, Hermes' tale's hidden core, and the inverted eyes showed him a taboo truth. The court's gentle whispers were born not of solace, but of a broken oath older than the Titans, where Hypnos, his father, bargained with the underworld guide Charon for eternal sleep's dominion, trading a piece of the god's essence for the boon of shaping mortal nights, but incurring a blood price that scarred Morpheus with insomnia's seed, a restlessness that no slumber could erase. The petals settle at your feet, forming a mosaic that pulses with quartz light, and the quirky detail of her affliction emerges, these coughed blooms, artifacts of the seer's bond to the deities. Possess a bizarre anomaly, they bloom only in paradox, revealing hidden inscriptions when pressed between palms, but only under a whispered contradiction, a rule tabooed among threshold guardians. For the function grants clarity on divine frailties, yet exacts the consequence of petal scars, faint marks on the skin that itch with unsleepable truths, trading the miracle of insight for the perpetual whisper of what the gods cannot rest from, echoing the humiliations of Hermes' recount. You press one gently, murmuring a contradiction from the river. The end begins, where sight fails, and the petal opens. Script blooming. Morpheus dreams all but his own fracture, the oath's cut that bleeds wakefulness into night. Visions cascade. You see the god at the river's edge, his form half mortal. Reflections eyes opening to show Charon's fairy laden with cursed relics feathers, turned to iron chains, Amulets of ode silences, and the psychological intrigue deepens. Chamber's air thickening with floral incense, the subtle creak of cedar branches like the god's unspoken sigh. Star omens shift above, an eclipse's shadow passing the fissures, darkening the petals momentarily. Motifs of fate recurring, labyrinthine turns in the mosaic, river crossings etched in bloom. A confessional interlude threads from the oracle's lips, her voice softening to first-person hush. I coughed my first petal in the waking world, revealing a hero's fall, and the truth bound me here. Where paradoxes are the only breath I own, the petals swirl faster, coughing in rhythm with her words. Unveiling more, the fractures castrated memories of pure sleep for the court's grandiosity, where every whisper to heroes like Orpheus carried Morpheus's hidden unrest. Blended with Norse legends of Baldur's death, a truth the gods could not dream away, their slumbers haunted by the mistletoe's pierce. Sensory creep builds, the silk robes whisper against stone, the damp petals clinging to your knees like Dooky's skin, the faint ring of iron from Charon's oars, an auditory illusion, salt tang sharpening the time's sweetness. The oracle coughs once more, a final cascade forming a path of blooms leading to a side alcove, where ash and perfume await restoration. Her blindfold lifts slightly, feather-veiled eyes conveying the logic of the deities, miracles of prophecy carry scars, not of flesh but of knowing too much, ode silences to truths that fracture even the shaper of dreams, pulling pilgrims into the consequential weave where ordinary crossings become eternal trials. As the petals settle, their script fading. The chamber's hum aligns with your pulse once more, but the unsleepable truth lingers, a gentle weight. But the question that remains is, what lost memory will the burnt offering restore when ash meets perfume? The oracle's petals form a fragrant trail that draws you to the side alcove, their crimson and indigo hues fading into the marble's veins as you step through a low archway, the chamber's hum softening to a reverent murmur. The space narrows to an intimate shrine, walls of blackened cedar panels inset with niches holding small braziers, their edges carved with motifs of flame-tongued rivers and labyrinthine coils, the air already thick with the anticipation of smoke. This is the sanctum of restoration in Morpheus's court, a hidden fold where lost essences are coaxed back from the god's vast weave. Echoing the epic rituals of Greek mythology, where heroes offered pyres to reclaim fragments of their souls amid ancient mysteries that bound the divine to the mortal flame. You approach the central brazier, a wide basin of hammered bronze etched with spiraling runes that glow faintly under the dome's starlit fissures. The metal still warm from some prior rite, its surface dusted with fine ash that shifts like the sand's veins you once traced. The amulet at your chest pulses in harmony with the relics urging you to the altar's edge where a bundle awaits. Dried herbs, bound with flax thread, their leaves curled and brittle, scented with myrrh and wild rose materials from the autumn groves of Arcadia, where celestial signs like the Pleiades rising marked the season for such offerings. The petals from the oracle carpet the floor here too, releasing their time tang as you kneel, the psychological tension easing into it. Solemn, calm, yet laced with the suspense of what the fire might unveil from the blood prices you've paid. You arrange the bundle carefully, ancient craft guiding your hands as if remembered from the temple's breath twisting the flax into a knot that seals the sacred bargain. Whispering a vow to Morpheus, restore what the crossings claimed, in exchange for the silence of what I reclaim. Striking flint against the bronze sparks fly like miniature star omens igniting. The herbs with a soft whoosh, the flames low and blue at first, then blooming to golden tongues that lick the air carrying the scent of lost memories. Upward in curling tendrils, historically in the Eleusinian mysteries of ancient Greece from the 6th century BCE, initiates offered similar burnt sacrifices in the Telesterian hall, their pyres releasing vapors that evoke the dead and the divine, allowing heroes like Demeter's devotees to glimpse ancestral faces in the smoke rituals that wove the underworld's threads into living. Breaths, much like this offering that bridges the court's gentle whispers to your own buried past. The smoke rises thickly now, coiling around you like the river's mist, its perfume sharp, an evocative more deepening to the earthiness of childhood soil. Rose softening to the sweetness of hearth-baked bread, scents that pull at the edges of recollection, the ones traded in the thought current's flow. As the flames consume the bundle, ash flakes drift downward, settling on the petals like gray snow, and the restoration begins. The air fills with layered fragrances. Each inhalation resurfacing fragments, the salt brine of a distant sea, crossing from your youth. The cedar warmth of a forgotten grove where oaths were first learned. Psychological intrigue stirs. The smoke forms shapes at the peripheral labyrinthine, turns resolving into familiar paths, eclipses flickering in the haze as motifs of fate recur. The god's logic demanding that every boon bear its mirror. A sacred bargain where the restored sense carry the subtle weight of consequence, scars of nostalgia that ache with what time has veiled. Deeper into the rite, you lean closer to the brazier, the heat kissing your face, and the quirky detail of this burnt offering reveals itself. The ash, infused with Morpheus's essence, possesses a bizarre function as a mythic artifact when inhaled through a held breath. It restores not just sense but flickering visages, but only under the taboo of naming a lost relic from one's past. A rule among the deities where the confession binds the smoke to truth, granting the miracle of visual echoes, yet exacting the blood price of smoke tears. Iridescent trails down the cheeks that whisper unsleepable regrets. Trading clarity for the gentle terror of seeing the self as once was, a cursed relic's gift that blurs the boundary between memory and dream. You hold your breath, the smoke swirling denser, and name the relic aloud, a small wooden idol from your childhood hearth, carved with a hero's form, lost to a river's flood. The ash responds, flames guttering as the scents intensify, the sharp tang of rain-soaked earth, the faint ring of iron from a distant anvil where that idol was forged, the incense of family gatherings under autumn stars. Then, in the smoke's heart, your childhood face flickers, eyes wide with wonder, cheeks flushed from play, a smile unscarred by the crossings you've endured. The visage hovering like a threshold guardian, beckoning yet distant, its gaze opening first as the river's reflection once did. The image sharpens, animated by the pyre's glow. You see yourself running through olive groves, hands grasping at star omens in the twilight, the idol clutched tight. A proverb forming on young lips, oaths live in the cut, learn from a storyteller's tale of deities and heroes. The flickering face turns toward. You smoke curling from its edges like exhaled whispers threading Norse legends into the vision tales of children in Midgard chasing the Norn's threads, their sense of pine and fire restoring. Glimpses of Ymir's ancient blood in the hearth's glow, blending with Greek pantheons where young Theseus first dreamed of labyrinths by sacrificial flames. Sensory creep builds, the bronze's metallic warmth against your palms, the petals crisping under rising heat like autumn leaves. The perfume overwhelming now, salt tang mingling with rose to evoke tears that well unbidden, iridescent as promised. A confessional interlude rises from the narrator's voice within. Calm amid the haze, I offered such a pyre in waking vigil once, and the smoke showed my own lost youth, a face that forgave the paths not taken, yet haunted the nights that followed. The vision lingers, the childhood face mouthing a hymnal fragment when stars shift, grief shifts with them, before dissolving into swirling ash, the sense fading to a subtle undercurrent, leaving you with the smoke tears tracing your cheeks, their whispers gentle but insistent, recounting the idol's loss in the flood's rush. A blood price paid long before the court's trials. The brazier dims, flames retreating to embers. But the restoration's consequence settles. The restored memory sharpens your resolve. It binds it with the ache of what was surrendered. Motifs of cursed relics in the tear streaks, faint etchings of rivers and oaths. The alcove's air clears, the petals charred at the edges, revealing a new path etched in the floor, leading toward the law of surrendered eyes, where dawn's breaking waits within dreams. Epic cadence slows the god's court, affirming its logic, miracles of reclamation. Carry the price of revisited scars, owed silences to the deities who gift back what the journeys claim, pulling you onward through the weave of heroes' forgotten sense. But the question that remains is, what upward stare will the dawn demand when sleepers must avert their gaze? The alcove's embers cast a fading glow as you rise, the smoke tears drying on your cheeks like faint iridescent maps of the restored memory, their whispers subsiding into the charred petals' hush. The etched path in the floor guides you onward, a subtle groove winding through the shrine's rear wall. which parts like mist under the relic's combined hum. Leading into a vaulted gallery, where the air lightens infused with the crisp edge of impending light, dawn's subtle herald, even in this subterranean realm of Morpheus's court. You traverse the gallery, walls of translucent alabaster allowing slivers of ethereal radiance to filter through, casting elongated shadows that dance like threshold guardians in the epic corridors of Greek mythology, where ancient mysteries unfold in layers of revelation and restraint. The path opens into a circular pavilion, its floor a mosaic of pearl and obsidian, depicting sleepers in repose as closed. Forms curled under celestial domes, but one figure at the center stares upward. Its mosaic gaze cracked and faded, a warning etched in the tile's fissures. Low benches of polished cedar encircle the space, each inset with a small basin of quicksilver that ripples without cause, reflecting the dome's painted heavens, constellations wheeling in eternal autumn. Star omens aligning toward an internal eclipse that hints at dawn's breaking within. You settle on a bench, the wood warm and yielding, and the pavilion stirs a soft exhalation from the walls, echoing the labyrinth's still breath, carrying the faint perfume of the burnt offering now mingled with the ozone temps of approaching light. This is the Hall of Surrendered Eyes, a sanctum where the court's logic enforces its taboos, teaching pilgrims the prices paid by those who defy the god's veiled laws. As you gaze upward, the dome's illusions activate the painted stars, shifting subtly, and a spectral figure materializes at the mosaic's center. Not the oracle, but a luminous attendant of Morpheus, robed in veils of dawn-hued silk that flow like captured sunlight, her face serene, yet stern eyes, half-lidded in perpetual twilight. She is an oath-keeper of the sleeper's realm, her presence evoking the heroes who learn such laws through trial, like Endymion, the shepherd beloved of Selene, who slumbered eternally under the moon's watch, his upward gaze forbidden, lest it shatter the boon of endless night. Pilgrim she intones her voice, a methodical cadence that builds suspense, gentle yet unyielding. You have crossed rivers of thought and gathered feathers of knowing. I'll learn the law that binds the eyes in sleep, is embrace why sleepers must not stare upward as dawn breaks inside their dreams. She gestures to the mosaic, the tiles warming under her touch, and the lesson unfolds in visions projected on the dome. Sleepers in the court's deeper chambers, their forms reclined on pillow stones akin to the one you touched, eyelids fluttering in the god's whispers. Historically, as in the local legends of the hypnagogic rites at the temple of Asclepius and Epidaurus from the 4th century BCE, patients were instructed during incubation to avert their gaze from the sanctuary, sealing frescoes at the first hint of inner light. For the god's attendants believed, such stares invited the sun's intrusion into dreams, turning healing visions into labyrinths of wakeful torment, a practice that guided heroes recovering from labors like Heracles' 12 trials, while their slumbers protected by the deities' strict veils. Here, the attendant explains, the law stems from Morpheus' own fracture, the unsleepable truth. The oracle coughed forth where the god's essence traded in Hypnos' ancient bargain with Charon, infused dreams with a fragile boundary. Upward stairs pierce the veil, summoning dawn's raw light into the nocturnal weave, unraveling the gentle whispers into threads of harsh reality. The visions deepen. You see a sleeper defying the taboo, eyes lifting in the dream's hush. The dome cracks open, an illusion, a river of golden light cascading inward. Not benevolent, but searing, its currents crossing the dreamscape like the thought river amplified. Reflections inverting to show the sleeper's face aged in instants, star omens exploding into eclipses that blind the inner sight. Psychological tension coils as the attendant's words layer the epic scope. The law demands surrender. For dawn's breaking inside carries the blood price of stolen time memories traded not to the current, but to Helios's unyielding gaze, where the sleeper awakens not refreshed, but scarred by future's glimpse too soon, owed silences to the deities who guard the night's illusion. The quicksilver basins ripple in response, mirroring your own face now. Eyes drawn upward despite the warning, the mosaic's cracked figure seeming to nod in shared folly. The quirky detail of this law reveals itself through the attendant's gesture to a small artifact on the central bencher. Obsidian monocle, its lens veined with captured dawnlight, a mythic relic from Morpheus's court. In the domain of the deities, it possesses a bizarre function, When held to the eye during sleep's edge, it allows a controlled upward stare, revealing hidden omens in the breaking light, but only under the taboo of whispering a personal dawn. A first light memory surrendered to the lens of rule that grants the miracle of prophetic glimpses yet exacts the consequence of light scars. Faint burns on the lids that replay the dreams unraveling in waking hours, trading insight for the perpetual itch of what dawn stole. A cursed relic's curse that echoes the god's own insomnia. Compelled you take the monocle, its cool weight familiar like the cylinder from the sands, and hold it to your eye. Whispering the dawn of your restored memory, the first hearthlight flickering to life in childhood hands. The lens warms and the dome's visions sharpen. You witness Morpheus himself in a rare mortal echo staring upward from his failed slumbered dawn, breaking inside his dream to reveal the fracture. Charon's fairy laden with his essence, the oaths-cut bleeding light that forced his return to the court scarred by the taboo's bite. Blended Norse legends surface in the light. Tales of Freya's tears turning to gold under Dawn's gaze. Her upward stare and dreams, cursing her with visions of Ragnarok's fire heroes like Sigurd, learning to avert eyes lest the light consume their forged oaths. Sensory creep builds, the alabaster's subtle sweat under the illusion's heat. The cedar benches creaking like waking bones, the ozone sharpening to the bite of inner sun, incense from the pyre ghosting the air with rose and myrrh. A confessional interlude threads from the attendant's voice, softening to first-person calm. I once stared in defiance, and the dawn claimed a night I cherished, teaching me the law's mercy and surrender. The monocle dims, releasing you, but the light scars tingle faintly on your lids. The visions fading to leave the pavilion in balanced twilight, the mosaic whole once more. Motifs recur, faint river laps in the basin's ripples, star omens, steadying post-eclipse, sacred bargains etched in the relief of averted gazes. The epic cadence affirms the court's logic miracles of sight carry costs, not blindness, but the quiet erosion of night's peace, where sleepers learn to yield to the deities' veils, pulling pilgrims toward mirrors of forgotten seas. The attendant dissolves into the veils, leaving the monocle in your grasp, the path beyond the pavilion shimmering with the insomniac sun's distant glow. But the question that remains is, what future will the obsidian basin's drifting reflections show when they never quite arrive? The pavilion's veils part with the attendant's dissolution. The monocle's light scars fading to a subtle warmth on your lids as the path ahead shimmers. Leading through a series of arched portals framed in twisted cedar, each one exhaling the faint ozone of the insomniac sun's approach. You follow the groove, etched from the shrine, the air growing cooler and heavier, laced with the briny undertow of distant waters, pulling you toward a secluded alcove where the walls curve into a natural basin of raw obsidians, smooth and black as the river's depths, its surface polished by eons of unseen tides. This is the mirror of forgotten seas in Morpheus's court, a reflective hollow where the gods' whispers ill converge with lost oceans, echoing the epic voyages of Greek mythology's heroes who consulted such waters for glimpses. Beyond the veil of fate, you descend the final steps, the obsidian floor cool and unyielding under your sandals, reflecting the dome's star omens in fractured gleams that dance like captive eclipses. At the alcove's heart rests the basin proper, wide, shallow depression carved from a single slab of the dark. Stone its edges rimmed with veins of silver quartz that pulse faintly syncing with the relics. Hum in your pockets and the amulet's steady throb. The basin holds no visible water, yet its surface shimmers with an illusory sea. Calm and deep, drifting reflections emerging from the ether like ships on a fog-bound horizon. You lean over the edge, the air thick with the scent of salt and ancient kelp, the sonic texture a soft, rhythmic lap against the stone waves that whisper rather than crash. Motifs recurring from the thought-river's current and the sands. Subtle shifts drawing you into the psychological hush of what might be revealed. Kneeling closer, the reflections stir, not mirroring your face, but unfolding future ethereal scenes drifting across the obsidian like mirages on the Aegean in autumn gales, when the Pleiades dip low, heralding the season of introspection and peril. You see a hero's silhouette first, cloaked in mist, crossing a river of liquid starlight toward a labyrinthine pavilion. But the image blurs at the edges, never quite arriving at resolution. The figure pausing eternally on the threshold, as if caught in Morpheus's gentle snare. The basin's sea deepens in hue, pulling at your gaze, and the whispers rise soft exhalations from the quartz veins, carrying fragments of hymnal lines. Oaths live in the cut, intoned in voices that blend the oracle's paradox with the pillowstone's echoes, building suspense in their methodical cadence, the epic scope narrowing to intimate possibilities that tease without fulfillment. Historically, in the local legends of the oracle at Dodona in Epirus from the 8th century BCE, priestesses consulted sacred springs and bronze cauldrons filled with water from forgotten seas, their reflections revealing fates for heroes like Odysseus, who sought guidance on his return from Troy, the drifting images warning of trials that approached but never fully materialized until the wanderer's resolve shaped them rituals that wove the deities. Mysteries into the pilgrim's path, much like this basin that holds the quartz veiled prophecies. The reflections multiply now. Layering across the surface, one shows you in a glade of woven clouds, gathering feathers that turn to iron mid-flight. A sacred bargain half-struck, the oathkeeper's hand extended but withdrawing just shy of touch. Another depicts the insomniac sun rising brittle over dunes, its light warming your skin but fading before it casts true shadow. Futures of restoration that hover on the brink, echoing the burnt offering smoke but dissolving into salt mist. The psychological tension coils as the sea's drift accelerates, reflections brushing the basin's edges like waves lapping at a forbidden shore. Each one a motif of near-arrival star omens, aligning in incomplete constellations, eclipses cresting but not peaking, rivers cross to shores that recede. You extend a hand, fingers hovering above the surface, and the water illusion responds, rippling without disturbance sense, sharpening, the brine of the sticks, mingling with cedar from the alcove's panels. The faint ring of iron from Charon's oars and the whispers incense ghosts from the pyre threading through like kelp. The monocle scars tingle, urging a deeper gaze. And the quirky detail of this obsidian basin emerges as a mythic artifact tied to the deities. Domain. The mirror of forgotten seas holds a bizarre rule, reflecting not certainties but potentials that drift eternally, a taboo among the fate weavers where touching the surface summons a personal future fragment, but only if whispered to the stone, a function granting tactile visions of what might be yet exacting the blood price of drifting scars faint. Watery marks on the skin that replay the non-arrival in dreams, trading the miracle of foresight for the consequence of perpetual almosts. Cursed relics that haunt the pilgrim with the ache of unlived paths. You whisper to the obsidian, naming a future from the restored memory, the hearth's light, guiding you to a hero-esque quest. Your fingers dip lightly, illusion sea clinging cool and viscous, pulling the reflection upward. It materializes in your palm, a small, drifting orb of mist, showing your form at the quartz heart, facing Morpheus in his fractured glory. But the god's hand reaches yet never clasps, the gentle whisper forming on his lips, but dissolving into silence. The future hovering unresolved, a psychological snare that stirs the terror of the known unknown. Adlended Norse legends surface in the mist, visions of heroes sailing the seas to Valhalla. Their prows cutting waves that promise glory but curl back into fog, fates woven by the Norns in half-threads. Echoing Greek pantheons, where Perseus glimpsed Medusa's end in similar mirrors, only to find the arrival deferred by Athena's veils. Sensory creep envelops the alcove, the obsidian sweat-like condensation beating under your touch, the quartz veins, pulsing with a heartbeat not your own, the lap of reflections growing insistent. Like breaths held too long, the salt tang biting the tongue with each inhale. A confessional interlude rises from within. The narrator as voice calm amid the drift. I touched such a sea once in waking trance, and the futures drifted through my fingers, teaching me the mercy in their refusal to land. The orb dissipates, leaving drifting scars on your hand, translucent trails that shimmer, whispering the non-arrival, the clasp unmade, the silence owed. The basin settles, reflections slowing to a serene drift, motifs affirming the quartz logic, miracles of vision. Carry costs not revelations, but the quiet tease of what the deities withhold, pulling heroes through the weave of potentials that shape without seizing. The alcove's air stills, the path beyond emerging from the shadows, leading toward the insomniac sun's brittle rise. But the drifting scars pulse faintly, hinting at warmth lost. But the question that remains is, how will the sun's forgetfulness turn dreams brittle when all things lose their warmth? The alcove's obsidian sea settles into glassy repose, the drifting scars on your hand cooling to a faint, insistent tingle as the path ahead brightens, winding upward through a series of terraced ledges where the air shifts from briny hush to a dry, arid warmth, laced with the faint char of overextended light. You ascend, the cedar steps worn smooth by countless pilgrims, the relic's hums vibrating in subtle discord now, as if protesting the encroaching glare that filters through widening fissures in the ceiling cracks that widen like eyelids straining against sleep. This ascent pulls you toward the insomniac sun's domain, fractured plateau in Morpheus's court where the gods' whispers clash with Helios's relentless vigil, weaving the epic tensions of Greek mythology into the ancient mysteries of light's betrayal, where heroes learn the perils of divine forgetfulness. You emerge onto the plateau, a vast expanse of cracked earth ringed by jagged spires of quartz that pierce the false sky above. The dome here shattered into an open vault where the insomniac sun hangs, perpetual and swollen, its orb a dull copper that refuses to dip, casting a brittle glow over the landscape. The light feels wrong, harsh at the edges, yet leaching warmth from all it touches, turning the air brittle like parchment stretched too thin, and the ground beneath your feet crunches faintly. Not with sand, but with the desiccated remnants of dream fragments, shards that glint like broken oaths under the unrelenting stare. Star omens are absent here, eclipsed by the sun's dominance, but motifs linger in the shadows, faint river veins tracing the plateau's fissures, labyrinthine cracks spidering outward, the psychological tension building as the warmth drains from your skin, the drifting scars tightening like frost despite the light's insistence. The sun's forgetfulness manifests subtly at first, a slow creep where the plateau's flora, twisted cedars with leaves like feather remnants, begin to crisp, their branches sighing as sap thickens to resin, losing the supple give of life. You feel it in your own form, the amulet's warmth fading to tepid metal, the monocle's lens clouding, even the gentle whispers from the relics turning sharp, like breaths held too long in the still labyrinth. This is Helios's lapse, the sun god's ancient weariness, bleeding into Morpheus's realm, where the charioteer of day, burdened by his eternal circuit, occasionally forgets to yield to Nyx's night, his rays piercing the dream veil and turning visions brittle, fragile constructs that crack under scrutiny, alive things stripped of their vital heat. Historically, in the local legends of Rhodes from the Hellenistic era around 300 BCE, the Colossus of Helios stood as a sentinel against such forgetfulness, its bronze form channeling the god's rest during solstice rites, where priests enacted rituals to remind the deity of his cycle, guiding heroes like Alexander the Great in dreams of conquest, their slumbers protected from the sun's intrusive glare that could shatter prophetic nights into waking delusions. As you traverse the plateau, the effects escalate. Small grove ahead, once lush with illusory olive trees, echoing the temple's scents, now stands petrified branches snapping under a tentative touch, their wood hollow and echoing like the pillowstone's voices but devoid of resonance. Dreams flicker at the edges of your sight, half-formed visions from the basin's reflections, heroes crossing rivers that evaporate, mid-stride their forms crisping into statues. Mid-gesture, the psychological intrigue deepening as the sun's light refracts through the quartz spires, casting prismatic warnings of sacred bargains unkept. The air grows taut, each inhale pulling at the lungs like drawing on taut silk, and the whispers, once soothing, now grate with brittleness. Hymnal fragments fracturing. When stars shift, grief shifts, the words trailing into silence, motifs of fate weavers, unraveling under the forgetful blaze. You press toward the grove's heart where a central spire looms, its quartz veined with trapped eclipses that pulse weakly, struggling against the sun's dominance. And the quirky detail of Helios' affliction reveals itself through a mythic artifact embedded at the base, a golden chariot wheel half buried in the cracked earth, its spokes forged from sun-tempered bronze that gleams unnaturally. In the deity's lore, this relic possesses a bizarre temperament. When spun by a pilgrim's hand under the insomniac light, it restores fleeting warmth to one living thing, but only if the turner confesses a personal forgetfulness. Taboo rule among the oath keepers for the function draws Helios's attention, briefly granting the miracle of thawed dreams, yet exacting the blood price of brittle echoes where the restored warmth rebounds as chilling. Voids in the heart, trading vitality for the consequence of memories frozen mid-flow, a cursed relic that mirrors the sun's lapse, turning heroes' inner fires to ash veins. Compelled by the plateau's draining pull, you grip the wheel. It's metal hot, yet yielding no true heat. Spin it once, confessing a forgetfulness from the restored hearth, the idol's loss in the flood, a warmth surrendered to waves. The wheel turns smoothly, humming a discordant melody that clashes with the relics. And a ripple spreads. The nearest cedar branch softens, leaves unfurling with a sigh. Warmth blooming in its bark like the pyre's embers. But the cost follows swiftly. The brittleness rebounds into you, a chill settling in your chest. Dreams turning vivid yet fragile, alive things within flickering like candles in gale. The psychological snare tightening as visions crack, the god's court in miniature. Pavilions of cloud shattering into dust, gentle terrors petrifying mid-whisper, their names echoing hollow. Sensory creep intensifies under the sun's stare. The court spires, sweating beads of light that evaporate on contact, the cracked earth rasping. Like brittle bone underfoot, the faint ring of the chariot's ancient axles and the salt tang from the basins, sea now dried to powder on the wind. Blended Norse legends thread through the chill, tales of Surtur's fire forgetting its rest in Muspelheim, turning the world's warmth to frost-kissed flames. Heroes like Beowulf facing brittle foes whose life heat fled under eternal day. Echoing Greek pantheons where Icarus's wings crisped in Helios's unchecked gaze, the fall a blood price for defying the cycle. A confessional interlude surfaces from the narrator Escom within. I felt this sun once in a fevered daydream. Its forgetfulness stripping the color from my world, teaching me the quiet terror in light's endless watch. The wheel stills, the cedar wilting anew as the warmth flees, leaving the plateau colder, the insomniac orb unyielding. Its light bending the spires into labyrinthine shadows that point toward a distant rise, the stone that hums your name. Motifs recur, faint river cracks weeping dry, star omens glimpsed in the wheel's spokes as eclipsed promises, sacred bargains etched in the frost of your breath. The epic cadence builds through the brittleness, affirming the court's logic miracles of light. Carry costs not burns, but the erosion of essence, or deities. Lapses pull heroes into the consequential freeze, ode silences to the sun that forgets its rest, weaving warmth's loss into the dream's fragile core. The chill deepens, driving you onward. But the brittle echoes linger in your veins, hinting at names hummed in stone. But the question that remains is, what heartbeat will the black stone mimic when it first hums your name? The black stone's hum fades to a resonant afterbeat in your chest as the hollow S walls part further. The path ascending through a series of root-woven steps that twist like the labyrinth's veins. The air lightening from metallic hush to a warmer, savory undercurrent, roasted herbs and faint smoke, as if from unseen hearths. You climb, the pulse scars on your palm, throbbing in time, with the relic's renewed sink. The insomniac sun's amber light, yielding to softer, diffused glows filtering through canopy-like fissures above. Motifs of the burnt offering recurring in the subtle char that clings to the roots. This ascent leads to the feast of quiet mouths, a grand hall in Morpheus's court where deities and their attendants convene in ritual silence. Swallowing fragments of the mortal world to sustain the dream, we have an epic tableau from Greek mythology's ancient mysteries where gods dined on essences, unspoken binding heroes to the taboos of divine hunger. You emerge into the hall, a vast chamber of vaulted marble veined with gold that gleams like captured star omens. Long tables of polished cedar stretching end to end, laden with platters of ethereal fair fruits that shimmer like the basin's reflections, loaves baked from dream dust chalices brimming with nectar that swirls without spilling. The air hums with the low murmur of unspoken appetites, scents layering richly. Thyme from the oracle's petals, myrrh from the pyre, salt from the forgotten seas, all mingling in a perfume that teases the tongue without satisfying. Figures occupy the benches, luminous shades of deities and oath-keepers, their forms half-veiled in mist, mouths sealed in serene repose, eyes averted in the law of surrendered gazes. Yet their presence presses with the weight of quiet consumption. Psychological tension building as you sense the feast's unspoken rule. no words pass lips. Only the swallowing of mortal silences, fragments harvested from pilgrims like you to feed the court's eternal hush. You take a seat at the hall's edge, the cedar warm beneath you, and the feast stirs a subtle ripple across the tables as the shades lean forward their movements. Methodical epic cadence in the silence, each bite a sacred bargain with the void. Historically, in the local legends of the Thesmophoria festival in ancient Athens from the 5th century BCE, priestesses enacted silent feasts in Demeter's honor, swallowing symbolic seeds of silence to invoke fertility and the underworld's gifts. Guiding heroes' wives in rites that mirrored the gods' quiet banquets on Olympus, where Zeus and his kin dined without utterance to preserve the balance of oaths. Their meals sustaining the pantheon's veils against mortal prying, much like this hall where Morpheus's attendants consume to mend the gods' fractured whispers. The platters shift toward you, an invitation veiled in the hush, and a chalice glides into your grass, pit's stem etched with labyrinthine coils. The nectar inside a deep indigo that tastes of the thought river's brine on the tongue, cool yet invigorating, pulling at the edges of your voice. The shades watch without watching, their mouths opening in unison for the first course. Translucent orbs of captured silences, harvested from unspoken confessions across the realm, each one swallowed with a soft internal gulp that echoes. Faintly in the marble, the air vibrating with a collective restraint, you hesitate, the pulse scars itching, and the quirky detail of the feast reveals itself through a small artifact on your platter, a silver fork. Forged from oath metal, its tines curved like the river's reflections, a mythic relic in the deity's domain. It possesses a bizarre function. When used to pierce a silent sorb, it extracts a personal fragment for consumption. But only under the taboo of internal vow, no outward sound, a rule among the fate weavers. For the act grants the miracle of shared divine sustenance, yet exacts the blood price of quiet scars. Faint, voiceless welts on the throat that replace swallowed words and dreams. Trading communion for the consequence of eternal muteness and moments of need, a cursed relic that binds the pilgrim to the god's unspoken hunger. Compelled by the hall's pull, you form the vow within. I offer my silence to mend the weave and pierce an orb, the fork sinking easily, releasing a fragment. A nod of your own unvoiced regret from the hearth's restoration. The idol's loss swallowed not in words but in essence, the taste bittersweet like ash-laced rose. Warmth blooming briefly in your chest before the quiet scar forms, a subtle tightness in the throat that hushes even your breath. The shades nod imperceptibly, their own swallows sinking with yours. Visions flickering at the table's edge, Morpheus at the head, his form mist-shrouded. Mouth opening to consume a larger silence. The god's own insomnia. A fragment traded in hypnosis bargain with Charon, swallow pulling the fracture deeper into the court's core, mending yet amplifying the unrest. Psychological intrigue deepens. The nectar sharpens on the palate, sense intensifying the time's earthiness, grounding the myrrh's smoke. Salt tang evoking the basin's drift, the faint ring of iron from chalice stems like chains of restraint. The feast progresses in layers. Second courses of dream fruit that burst silently on the tongue, yielding juices of the sand's silver veins. Third, platters of bread woven from feather threads, their crumb evoking the terror's naming. Each bite a motif of the journey, river crossings in the nectar's flow. Labyrinth breaths in the bread's rise, the insomniac chill thawed momentarily by the hall's communal warmth. Blended Norse legends thread through the hush. Tales of the gods' silent feast in Asgard after Baldur's death, swallowing fragments of joy to preserve the light. Odin foregoing speech to attune to the world's quiet grief. Heroes like the Volsungs dining in muteness to honor fallen kin. Echoing Greek pantheons where the Olympians feasted without words during the Titanomachy truce, their silences sustaining the new order. Sensory creep builds, the marble floors humming with swallowed echoes, the cedar tables creaking like withheld sighs. The gold veins pulsing with the rhythm of the blackstone's mimicry, incense from the pyre ghosting the air like unspoken prayers. A confessional interlude rises internally, the narrator's voice threading through the quiet. I joined such a feast in a shadowed reverie, once swallowing my own words and the gods'. Silence taught me the weight of what remains unsaid, a bomb and a chain in equal measure. The shades lean closer as the final course approaches. Chalices refilled with the essence of dawn's breaking to be sipped in utter restraint, the taboo asserting. Overswallowing risks, The voices drift, pulling the pilgrim into the deities. Eternal quiet, a blood price, where mortal fragments become divine fodder, ode silences to Morpheus, who feeds on the hush to still his unrest. You sip carefully, the liquid warming the throat scar. Visions of the court's mend unfolding, fractures sealing in the god's form, yet the insomnia lingering, a gentle whisper, swallowed whole. The hall stills as the feast concludes, platters retreating into mist, the shades dissolving into the veils, leaving you with the quiet scar's throb, the epic cadence affirming the logic miracles of communion carry costs, not starvation, but the erosion of utterance, where God's quiet mouths pull heroes into the consequential swallow, weaving mortal silences into the dream's sustaining thread. The chamber's far wall shimmers, revealing a path to the garden of unblinking eyes, but the swallowed fragment echoes faintly, voiceless yet insistent. But the question that remains is, what unblinking vigil will the garden demand when the sleepers refuse to close their eyes? The plateau's brittle chill urges you forward, the insomniac sun's copper gaze unrelenting as you skirt the petrified grove, the cracked earth giving way to a narrower ledge that descends into a shadowed crevice, where the light dims to a sullen amber filtering through overhanging quartz. The air thickens here, carrying the faint, its metallic tang of deep stone and the lingering ozone from the sun's lapse. Your footsteps muffled on a path strewn with obsidian flakes that crunch like brittle dreams underfoot. This crevice winds deeper into Morpheus's cordovein in the earth's dream body, where the god's whispers resonate with the pulse of hidden artifacts, pulling you toward the stone that knows the pilgrim's rhythm and echo of Greek mythologies, ancient mysteries, where heroes confronted relics that mirrored their soul's cadence. You navigate the narrowing gap, walls of raw basalt closing in, their surfaces etched with faint, vein-like grooves that pulse sporadically, as if the insomniac warmth has seeped even here, turning the stone's breath erratic. The relics in your possession, the monocle, the orb, the cylinder hum, in faint discord syncing unevenly with the amulet as the crevice opens into a small enclosed hollow, its ceiling low and domed, veined with silver quartz that catches the dim light in spiderweb patterns. At the center rests the black stone, a fist-sized ovoid of polished onyx embedded in a natural pedestal of cracked granite, its surface smooth as the basin's sea yet opaque, absorbing the amber glow rather than reflecting it. You approach, drawn by a subtle vibration in the air, a soft hum, low and resonant like the distant toll of temple bells muffled by mist. Motifs recurring from the labyrinth's exhalations and the terror's naming, lingering before it, the hum intensifies, vibrating through the pedestal, into your knees, the sound weaving through the hollow like a living thread, gentle yet insistent, carrying the scent of damp cedar from the roots that probe the walls, a reminder of the grove's lost warmth. The stone's surface warms under your gaze, and as you extend a hand, the hum shifts, mirroring the rhythm of your own heartbeat, thump-thump, in perfect sync. A bizarre intimacy that blurs the boundary between self and relic. Psychological tension coiling as the realization dawns. This is no random echo, but a mimicry born of the court's logic, where Morpheus's domain attunes to the intruder's core, testing the hero's resolve against the echo of their life force. Historically, in the local legends of the oracle at Delphi from the Archaic period around 700 BC, priests consulted the Amphilis Stona, sacred navel of the world, set to hum with the earth's heartbeat during prophecies, guiding heroes like Oedipus through riddles of fate, its vibrations revealing truths hidden in the pulse of the land itself, rituals that blended the deity's whispers with the mortal rhythm. Much like this black stone that serves as a threshold in the dreamweave, its hum a sacred bargain with the pilgrim's vitality. The mimicry deepens. Your pulse quickens slightly from the chill, and the stone responds instantly, its hum accelerating in tandem. The quartz veins glowing brighter, casting elongated shadows that dance like fate weavers, spinning threads from your own beat. Sensory details sharpen, the basalt walls sweating faint beads of moisture that evaporate in the amber light, the faint ring of iron from imagined underworld chains resonating in the hum. The salt tang from the basins, scars mingling with the cedar's resinous bite, creating a heady perfume that clings to your skin like a second pulse. The stone's quirky detail reveals itself as you trace its surface fingers, feeling the subtle throb beneath the onyx. artifact forged in the god's court from the essence of broken oaths, possesses a bizarre function. It hums not just in mimicry, but amplifies the holder's heartbeat to summon personal echoes. A taboo among the oath keepers where the touch must be accompanied by a whispered name, not your own, but a forgotten one from the blood price's rule that draws forth auditory visions of past crossings, yet exacts the consequence of pulse scars, faint, throbbing marks on the palm that replay the heartbeat in waking silences, trading the miracle of self-revelation for the perpetual echo of isolation. A cursed relic that binds the hero to their rhythm, echoing Morpheus's own fractured insomnia, where the god's heart beats eternally against the night's veil. You whisper the name from the restored memory that kin from the hearth, lost to the floods, clammed on the hum swells, the stone warming fully now, its surface rippling like the basin's sea, releasing layered echoes, your heartbeat first, then overlaid with fragments of the journey, the temple's initial breath thumping in time. The river's inversion pulsing like a second heart, the feathers summoning fluttering in rhythmic bursts. Visions bloom in the hum's cadence. You see yourself at the plateau's edge. The insomniac's sun draining warmth, but the stone's mimicry pulls a counter-rhythm. A gentle whisper threading Norse legends into the throb tales of the world-hard Ymir, a pulse echoing in the giants. Veins heroes like Thor feeling Mjolnir's beats sync with their own in battles against forgetful flames blending with Greek deities where Prometheus's stolen fire once hummed in the Titan's chest. A blood price that scarred the thief with eternal vigilance, his heartbeat a perpetual oath to the gods. The mimicry peaks, the hollow resonating like a drum. The court's glowing crimson as your pulse races with the intensity. Psychological intrigue building as the echoes turn confessional. Snippets of the narrator's voice within.
Oh, it is.
This rhythm called me once in the quiet hours, mirroring doubts I dared not face alone. The thump-thump, weaving proverbs into its beat, oaths live in the cut, each syllable syncing with the systole. The stone's surface etches faintly under your palm, pulse scars forming like silver veins, throbbing with the warmth the sun stole, but the cost lingers, the isolations echo a hollow thump in the aftermath, motifs of labyrinthine turns in the shadows, star omens flickering through the fissures as eclipsed heartbeats. The air thickens with the hum's fullness. The cedar roots creaking like joints in repose, the moisture on the walls beating faster, dripping in time with the rhythm, salt and scent sharpening to the bite of inner revelation. A sacred bargain asserts itself in the glow. The stone offers to attune your relics to this mimicry, granting strength against the brittleness ahead. But the taboo warns of touching risks. The heartbeats drift, pulling the pilgrim into the stone's eternal pulse. A consequence where the self fades into the courts we've owed. Silences to Morpheus, who shapes dreams but cannot still his own fractured beat. You withdraw slowly, the hum softening to a lullaby echo of your steadying heart. The scars pulsing gently, affirming the epic cadence miracles of attunement carry costs. Not silence, but the amplified self, where deities' relics pull heroes into the consequential rhythm, weaving the ordinary pulse into divine trials. The hollow's walls part subtly, revealing a path ascending toward the feast of quiet mouths. But the stone's hum lingers in your chest, a companion throb. But the question that remains is, what fragment of mortal silence will the gods swallow when they dine without speaking? The hall's veils dissipate with the shade's withdrawal, the quiet scar on your throat tightening like a half-swallowed vow as the far wall shimmers fully, revealing a verdant archway draped in vines that pulse with faint inner light, their leaves veined like the courts of deeper chambers. You step through, the cedar's warmth yielding to cool, loamy earth underfoot. The air shifting from savory hush to a floral intensity, jasmine, laced with the subtle rot of overripe blooms. Scents that evoke the oracle's petals but edged with the insomniac sun's lingering char. His passage leads into the garden of unblinking eyes, a labyrinthine enclosure in Morpheus's court, where the goddess attendants enforce vigils that defy sleep, as embrace an epic vigil from Greek mythology's ancient mysteries where heroes face the taboos of eternal. Watch their gazes binding the dream weave against unraveling. The garden unfolds in twisting beds of luminous flora flowers with petals that unfurl like eyelid stems coiling in serpentine patterns that mimic the labyrinth's breaths, the ground carpeted in moss that yields softly whispering under your steps like the black stone's hum. Overhead a canopy of intertwined boughs forms. a dome riddled with fissures allowing slivers of the court's twilight to pierce, casting spotlights on clusters of stone figures. Sleepers frozen in repose, their eyes wide and unblinking, carved from pale marble that gleams with an unnatural sheen, as if infused with the basin's reflective sea. The air vibrates with a low, collective stare, psychological tension coiling as you sense the garden's demand. No closure of eyes, a vigil that pulls at your lids. The quiet scar urging restraint, while the pulse scars throb in protest, motifs recurring. River veins in the moss's moisture, feather-like fronds echoing the terror's plumage. The feast's swallowed fragments surfacing as faint, voiceless urges to look away. You wander deeper, the paths branching like the still breath's coils, and a central glade emerges, ringed by the unblinking sleepers, their gazes fixed upward toward the canopy's lights. Mouths parted in silent exhales, forms evoking the mosaic from the surrendered eye's hall, but animated in stillness, a refusal to yield to Morpheus's gentle pull. The flora responds to your presence, petals opening wider, their centers glowing with iris-like iridescence that mirrors your own eyes, drawing you into the vigil's web. Historically, in the local legends of the garden cults at Eleusis from the Mycenaean era, around 1500, BCE initiates underwent eye-opening rites under Demeter's gaze, refusing to blink during nocturnal ceremonies to invoke Persephone's return, guiding heroes and visions of the underworld's bloom, rituals that wove the deities' mysteries into the pilgrim's unyielding sight. Much like this garden where the sleeper's refusal sustains the court's fragile balance, mending the god's fracture through perpetual watch. The demand asserts itself subtly at first, pressure behind your eyes, the monocle's scars tingling as if warning of the taboo. And the quirky detail of the garden reveals itself through a small artifact nestled in the moss, a crystal bloom, its stem of twisted silver quartz holding a petal lens that captures the unblinking light, a mythic relic from the Oathkeeper's forge. In the deity's domain, it possesses a bizarre function. When held to the eye amid the vigil, it amplifies the sleeper's gaze to reveal hidden threads of the dreamweave. But only under the taboo of a steady stare, no blink for the count of 7 heartbeats, rule among the fate weavers. For the act grants the miracle of woven insights, yet exacts the blood price of vigil scars. Faint, luminous rings around the eyes that replay the unblinking strain in waking hours, trading clarity for the consequence of sleepless echoes. Cursed relic that binds the hero to the god's refusal. Mirroring Morpheus's insomnia, where the shaper of dreams cannot close his lids to his own unrest. You pluck the bloom, its weight light as a feather, yet insistent, and hold it to your eye, syncing your heartbeat with the pulse scar's throb-1.2. The garden sharpens, the sleeper's gazes converging, their marble eyes reflecting fragments of your journey, the temple's obsidian idol staring back from one, the river's inverted reflection in another, the feast's quiet swallow in a third. 3, 4. Visions layer in the lens, the sleepers as guardians against the insomniac sun's forgetfulness. Their unblinking, vigil-weaving threads that hold the brittleness at bay, petals blooming in response to hold the light's creep. But the refusals cost evident, marble veins cracking faintly, gazes etched with the weight of eternity's watched. 5.6. Psychological intrigue peaks, the pressure building like the black stone's mimicry, whispers rising from the moss. When stars shift, grief shifts with them, intoned in the sleeper's silent chorus. Blended Norse legends threading through tales of the ever-watchful ravens. Hugin and Munin perching in Yggdrasil's boughs, their unblinking eyes refusing rest to report Odin's will. Heroes like Ragnar Lothbrok enduring vigils in dragon-haunted gardens to glimpse fate's bloom, echoing Greek pantheons where Argus's 100 eyes guarded Io from Hera's jealousy. The refusal, a blood price that scarred the watcher with fragmented dreams. 7. You lower the bloom, the vigil scars forming glowing rings that itch with the strain, replaying the unblinking pull and faint pulses, sense intensifying, jasmine sharpening to the bite of overripe decay, moss releasing cedar earth like the pyre's aftermath, the faint ring of iron from imagined chains binding the sleeper's lids open. Sensory creep envelops the glade, the boughs creaking like withheld blinks the marble figures, sweating beads of light that trickle like tears, the floral intensity overwhelming salt, tang from the scars mingling with the rot's sweetness, creating a perfume that clings like an open gaze. A confessional interlude surfaces from within. The narrator's voice steady amid the watch. I stood in such a garden once under moonlit trance, eyes unyielding. And the vigil revealed the threads of my own unraveling, a sight both gift and gouge. The crystal bloom dims in your grasp, its lens etching a final vision. Morpheus wandering the paths, his own eyes unblinking in the gods' fracture, refusing closure to mend the courts, weave the sleeper's refusal a mirror to his insomnia sacred bargains, etched in their stares blood prices. Of eternal sight traded for the night's fragile hold. The glade's paths realign, vines parting to reveal a descent toward the chorus of the unmade, but the vigil scars burn gently, pulling your gaze upward still. The epic cadence affirming the logic miracles of watch carry costs not rest but the erosion of closure where deities. Refusals pull heroes into the consequential stare, weaving unblinking threads into the dream's vigilant core. The garden's eyes follow as you move, but the unmade chorus calls from below. But the question that remains is, what undone song will the chorus sing when the voices refuse to harmonize? The garden's unblinking gazes trail you like persistent shadows as the vines part. Fully the descent spiraling downward through root-choked steps that echo the black stones. Mimicry the air cooling from floral intensity to a resonant void laced with the faint dissonant hum of voices half-formed. You follow the path, the vigil scars around your eyes pulsing in time with the quiet scars throb. The flora's petals closing behind like reluctant lids, scents fading to the musty undertone of buried choirs. This spiral leads to the chorus of the unmade, a cavernous amphitheater in Morpheus's court, where echoes of undone songs reverberate. Voices refusing harmony to sustain the gods' fractured weave. An epic discord from Greek mythologies, ancient mysteries where heroes navigated the cacophony of divine disunity. Their ears attuned to the taboos of incomplete melodies. You emerge into the amphitheater, a vast bowl of echoing stone tiered with natural ledges of veined marble, the ceiling a dome pocked with fissures that allow twilight to trickle in. Casting fractured beams on the central stage, a flat expanse of obsidian, ringed by hollows where spectral figures hover. Their forms mistwoven, mouths agape in perpetual midnote. The air vibrates with the chorus's unmade song, not a unified hymn but a tangle of discordant threads, high keens clashing with low groans. Whispers fracturing into silence mid-phrase, the sound weaving through the space like the labyrinth's breaths bet. Amplified into psychological dissonance, pulling at your eardrums with the weight of unresolved cadences. Motifs recur, river-like echoes lapping at the walls.
Oh.
Feather-soft tones echoing the terror's naming. The feast's swallowed fragments surfacing as voiceless gaps in the melody. The unblinking vigils stare now auditory, refusing closure in sound. The figures stir as you descend the tiers, their eyes unblinking remnants from the garden fixed on the stage, mouths emitting the unharmonized strains. One voice lilts in a gentle whisper of the temple's breath, only to shatter against another's gravelly inversion from the thought river. Creating a song that builds toward harmony but dissolves into cacophony, the obsidian stage rippling like the basin's sea under the assault. Historically, in the local legends of the Orphic cults in Thrace from the 6th century, BCE mystics gathered in cavernous halls to chant the unmade hymns of Orpheus. Refusing full harmony to invoke Dionysus's ecstatic disunity, guiding heroes like Jason in visions of the Argonaut's voyage, rituals that blended the deities. Mysteries into the pilgrim's ear, much like this chorus where the unmade song mends. Morpheus's insomnia, by weaving discord into the dream's core, preventing the fracture's collapse into silence. The refusal's demand asserts itself, a compulsion to join the chorus, the quiet scar tightening as if to hush your own voice. And the quirky detail reveals itself through a small artifact on the nearest ledge, a silver lyre string. Coiled and humming faintly, forged from oath silver in the court's depths, a mythic relic of the Fate Weavers. In the deity's domain, it possesses a bizarre function when plucked amid the discord. It threads a personal note into the unmade song, but only under the taboo of a silent pluckno vocalade, a rule among the Oathkeepers. For the act grants the miracle of partial harmony, yet exacts the blood price of discord scars. Faint, vibrating welts on the fingertips that replay the unharmonized clash in waking thoughts. Trading unity for the consequence of eternal half-songs, a cursed relic that binds the hero to the god's refusal. mirroring the chorus's vigil where voices sustain the weave through deliberate fracture. You uncoil the string, its cool vibration syncing with the pulse scars, and pluck it silently, the note emerging pure thread of your restored hearth melody. The idol's lost warmth sung in subtle tones, only to clash with the surrounding discord. Weaving into the song without resolving, visions blooming in the amphitheater's echoes, the chorus as guardians against the insomniac sun's brittleness. Their unharmonized strains holding the light's creep at bay, figures twisting in mid-note to mend the god's fracture. But the refusals cost evident missed forms fraying at the edges, voices etching faint cracks in the marble tiers. Psychological intrigue peaks, the cacophony building like the Blackstone's mimicry. Pressures mounting in your skull as the song teases completion. Oaths live in the cut, fragmented across the voices. Blended Norse legends threading through tales of the Valkyries' discordant choirs in folk Vanger, refusing harmony to choose the slain. Odin listening to the unmade lays of the world tree's roots, heroes like Sigurd enduring the clash to glimpse the Volsung saga's end, echoing Greek pantheons where the sirens' unharmonized calls lured Odysseus to near ruin. The refusal a blood price that scarred the listener with lingering echoes. The string falls silent, the discord scars forming vibrating lines on your fingers that hum with the clash, playing the half-song in faint tremors, the sense intensifying. Jasmine from the garden sharpening to the rot of unresolved blooms. Moss, earth releasing cedar like the pyre's ghost, the faint ring of iron from lyre frames in the echoes, salt tang from the scars mingling with the voids, mustiness, creating a sonic perfume that clings like an open chord. Sensory creep envelops the stage, the marble tiers humming with clashing vibrations, the obsidian rippling like withheld breaths. The twilight beams fracturing into prismatic disarray, incense from the feast ghosting the air like unspoken verses. A confessional interlude surfaces from within, the narrator's voice steady amid the discord. I plucked such a string in a shadowed concert once, threading my note into the chaos. And the unmade song revealed the fractures in my own harmony, a discord both curse and composition. The lyre string dims in your grasp, its coil etching a final vision. Morpheus conducting from the shadows, his own voice unharmonized in the god's fracture. Refusing full song to mend the court's weave, the chorus's refusal a mirror to his insomnia. Sacred bargains etched in their strains blood prices of eternal discord traded for the night's fragile resonance. The amphitheater's tiers realign, echoes parting to reveal a passage toward the veil of the half-awake, but the discord scars vibrate gently, pulling your ear toward the lingering clash, the epic cadence affirming the logic miracles of song carry costs. It's not silence, but the erosion of resolution. Where deities' refusals pull heroes into the consequential discord, weaving unmade threads into the dream's dissonant core. The chorus fades to a murmur as you advance, but the half-song echoes faintly, unresolved yet insistent. But the question that remains is, what half-vision will the veil grant when the awake refuse to fully stir? The amphitheater's echoes trail you like dissonant afterimages as the tiers part the passage, narrowing into a gauzy corridor, where the marble gives way to translucent veils of mist-woven silk hanging in languid folds that brush your skin with the cool touch of half-remembered dreams. You advance the discord scars on your fingers, humming faintly against the quiet. Scars restrain the air shifting from resonant void to a liminal haze scented with the faint ethereal musk of twilights. Edged jasmine from the garden, softened by the char of the insomniac's sun motifs, blurring like half-formed notes from the chorus. This corridor leads to the veil of the half-awake, suspended threshold in Morpheus's court, where the boundary between slumber and stir thins to gossamer, granting visions that tease without completion, an epic limbo from Greek mythologies, ancient mysteries where heroes lingered in the god's half-light, attuned to the taboos of incomplete awakenings. You reach the veil's heart, a vast curtain of layered silks spanning a circular alcove, its folds undulating gently in an unfelt breeze. It's illuminated by fissures in the walls that leak the court's perpetual dusk, casting elongated patterns like the unblinking eyes. Vigils. The silks part slightly at your approach, revealing glimpses beyond, not a full vista, but fragmented scenes, sleepers stirring on pillow stones. Their forms caught mid-motion, eyes fluttering open yet not fully, mouths parting for unmade songs that dissolve into whispers. The air hums with a subdued tension, psychological intrigue coiling as the half-awake refuse to commit. Pulling at your own lids with the vigil scars itch, the relics sink faltering in the limbo. Motifs recurring, river mists in the silk's sheen, velts echoing the terror's form. The feast's swallowed essence surfacing as half-tastes on the tongue, the chorus's discord resolving into tentative harmonies that fade before crescendo. The refusal's grant asserts itself a compulsion to pass through the veil. The monocle's scars warming as if urging a partial step, and the quirky detail reveals itself through a small artifact dangling from a fold, a gossamer thread spool, spun from dream silk in the Fate Weaver's looms. A mythic relic of the Oath Keepers. In the deity's domain, it possesses a bizarre function. When unwound through the veil, it threads a personal half-vision into the limbo, but only under the taboo of a partial crossing, no full commitment, lingering at the edge of rule among the threshold guardians. For the act grants the miracle of glimpsed stirrings, yet exacts the blood price of limbo scars. Faint hazy bands across the brow that replay the half-awake pull and waking transitions, trading insight for the consequence of eternal thresholds. A cursed relic that binds the hero to the god's refusal, mirroring Morpheus's fracture where the shaper of dreams stirs eternally without full repose. You unwind the spool, the thread gliding smoothly, and step partially through. One foot in the haze, the other rooted, sinking your breath with the pulse scar's throb, the vision blooming in the silks, your form at the court escort. Facing the god in his mistrobed glory, hand extending toward his but pausing mid-reach. The gentle whisper forming on his lips yet trailing into half-note, the awake refusing to stir fully. Scenes layering heroes from the sands cresting dunes that flatten before summit, oath keepers offering scrolls that unroll two blanks. Psychological intrigue peaks, the limbo's haze building like the basin's drift. Pressures mounting in your temples as the vision teases completion. When stars shift, grief shifts with them, murmured in fragmented tones. Blended Norse legends threading through tales of the half-awake in Valhalla's halls. Warriors stirring from mead dreams without rising, Odin lingering at the well's edge in twilight vigils, heroes like Beowulf caught in the dragon's lair mid-wake. Echoing Greek pantheons where Sisyphus paused eternally in his half-cent. The refusal a blood price that scarred the liminal with perpetual almosts. The thread snaps taut, the limbo scars forming hazy lines on your brow that blur the edges of sight. Replaying the partial stir and faint overlays. Sense intensifying. Jasmine sharpening to the musk of unresolved dusk. Silk releasing cedar like the black stone's warmth, the faint ring of iron from veiled chains in the hum. Salt tang from the scars mingling with the haze's ethereality, creating a liminal perfume that clings like a half-step. Sensory creep envelops the alcove, the silks whispering like withheld breaths, the fissures leaking light that fractures into prismatic half-shadows, the marble floors yielding like moss in transition, incense from the pyre ghosting the air like incomplete offerings. A confessional interlude surfaces from within. The narrator's voice steady amid the limbo. I crossed such a veil in a drowsy interlude once. Half stirring into the haze and the vision revealed the pauses in my own path, a threshold both invitation and impasse. The spool empties, its thread etching a final glimpse. Morpheus, at the veil's core. His form half awake in the god's fracture, refusing full stir to mend the court's weave. The half-vision's a mirror to his insomnia. Sacred bargains etched in the pause, blood prices of eternal limbo traded for the night's fragile suspension. The silks reform, parting fully, to reveal a path toward the pavilion of the sleepless god. But the limbo scars haze gently, pulling your step into hesitation. The epic cadence affirming the logic miracles of glimpse carry costs, not awakening, but the erosion of momentum, where deities' refusals pull heroes into the consequential pause, weaving half-threads into the dream's suspended core. The veil's haze lingers as you proceed, but the sleepless pavilion beckons from ahead. But the question that remains is, what final whisper will the sleepless god exhale when the dream concludes in silence? The veil's silks trail behind you like fading afterthoughts, limbo scars on your brow blurring the corridor's edges as the path straightens into a grand atrium. It's the mist yielding to a warmer, enveloping glow that pulses like the black stone's final throb. You advance. The relic's hums converging into a unified resonance, syncing with the quiet scar's hush. And the discord scar's faint vibration. The air thickening with the scent of accumulated journeys, cedar from the roots, salt from the seas, jasmine from the garden, all laced with the subtle incense of divine repose. This atrium opens into the pavilion of the sleepless god, the sanctum core of Morpheus's court, a domed expanse of woven clouds suspended in eternal twilight. Where the god himself presides over the dream's culmination is an epic convergence from Greek mythologies, ancient mysteries, where heroes finally beheld the shaper of visions. Attuned to the taboos of unyielding wakefulness, you step into the pavilion. The floor is seamless mosaic of pearl and obsidian depicting the entire weave rivers, coiling into labyrinths. Feathers drifting over sands. Unblinking eyes staring into choruses of discord, all converging toward a central throne of mist and plumage, its arms feathered in iridescent barbs that shift like the terror's mask.
Ow.
The air hums with a profound stillness, broken only by the god's subtle exhalations, gentle breaths that stir the clouds overhead, forming fleeting shapes of star omens and eclipsed moons motifs, resolving at last. The thought river's current flowing into the basin's reflections, the insomniac sun's brittleness thawing in the pavilion's core light. Morpheus awaits his form, towering yet intimate, robed in veils of swirling dream smoke, face half veiled by a cascade of silver. Hair, eyes open in perpetual fracture. Glowing with the court's veins, crimson pulse, the psychological tension cresting as his gaze meets yours, knowing the pilgrim's every crossing, every scar earned in the court's logic. He rises slowly, the throne's feathers rustling like the glade's vines, and gestures to a low pedestal beside him. The air vibrating with the weight of the dream's conclusion, no grand climax, but a silent unraveling, the god's insomnia etched in the subtle tremor of his hands. A reminder of the oracle's coughed truth and Hermes' tale of humiliation. Historically, in the local legends of the Honoroi cults at the sanctuary of Hera on Samos from the 7th century, BCE pilgrims enacted final vigils before effigies of Morpheus, exhaling shared breaths to invoke the god's presence. Guiding heroes like Agamemnon and dreams of Troy's fall, rituals that blended the deities, mysteries into the mortal exhale, much like this pavilion, where the sleepless god concludes journeys with whispers that mend. The weave sustaining his fractured essence through the pilgrim's silence. The conclusion's whisper asserts itself, an invitation to kneel, the vigil scars itching as if to hold your gaze. And the quirky detail reveals itself through a final artifact on the pedestal, a plume of the god's own essence. A single feather quill etched with the amulet's inscription, a mythic relic forged from the court's heart. In the deity's domain, it possesses a bizarre function. When dipped into the throne's mist and inscribed on the mosaic, it seals the dream's silence with a personal vow. But only under the taboo of a final exhale, no words, just breath or rule among the oath keepers. For the act grants the miracle of woven closure, yet exacts the blood price of whisper scars. Faint ethereal lines on the lips that replay the god's unrest in waking breaths. Trading resolution for the consequence of eternal half-silence, a cursed relic that binds the hero to the sleepless vigil. Mirroring Morpheus's fracture, where the shaper exhales dreams, but cannot still his own endless stir. You take the plume, its barbs warm against your scars, and dip it into the mist, the feather absorbing the swirl like the basin's sea inking the mosaic with your breath alone, a silent vow of the hearth's restored light, the idol's oath reforged in the weave. The inscription glows, visions cascading across the pavilion, the entire journey replaying in accelerated cadence temples, obsidian gleam, virgin sands, veins pulsing, pillow stones, echoes, terraces eclipse, bridges, reflections, glades, feathers summoning the terror, labyrinths, breaths, oracles, petals. Coughing paradox, shrines pyre, restoring sense, pavilions, surrendered eyes, alcoves, drifting futures, plateaus, brittle chill hollows, heartbeat, mimicry halls, quiet feast, gardens, unblinking vigil, amphitheaters unmade. Chorus, veils, half-awake limbo, all converging in the god's gaze, his fracture mending subtly, the insomnia easing in the pilgrim's offering, yet lingering as the blood price of divine balance. Psychological intrigue resolves in gentle waves, the exhale sinking with the god's own, pressures releasing like the chorus's half-harmony, the whisper forming, The dream concludes not in end, but in the silence that births the next weave, his voice a final motif. Blending Norse legend stales of the Norns sealing fates with breath, alone in the well of Jord. Heroes like the Nibelungs concluding sagas in hushed vigils. Echoing Greek pantheons where the muses whispered epics to sleepers. Morpheus's unrest, a sacred bargain etched in every exhale. Blood prices of eternal wakefulness traded for the night's fragile gift. Sensory creep envelops the throne, the clouds sighing like withheld songs, the mosaic warming like the pyre's embers, the feather's ink releasing cedar salt jasmine in a culminating perfume. The faint ring of iron from all chains, dissolved incense ghosts, from every rite converging in the god's breath. A confessional interlude rises one last time, the narrator's voice merging with Morpheus' calm. I exhaled here in the heart of reverie, once sealing my weave, and the god's whisper taught me the silence between. Dreams a conclusion that circles back to the first breath. The plume fades, the whisper scars forming soft lines on your lips that tingle with the unrest, replaying the god's gentle exhale in every future. Sigh the mosaic ceiling with a final glow, the epic cadence affirming the logic miracles of closure carry costs not. Finality, but the erosion of isolation, where deities' whispers pull heroes into the consequential silence. Weaving the pilgrim's scars into the dream's eternal core. The pavilion stills, the clouds parting to reveal the waking threshold. But the god's gaze lingers, his final whisper echoing in the hush. But the question that remains is, what scar from the dream will follow you into the waking world when the silence breaks? The pavilion's clouds dissolve into swirling eddies as Morpheus's gaze softens. The whisper scars on your lips tingling with the god's final exhale. A breath that carries the weight of all crossings resolved yet eternally suspended. You rise from the pedestal, the mosaic beneath your feet cooling like the pyre's embers after restoration. The relics in your grasp the monocle. Orb, cylinder, plume, fading into translucent echoes. Their hums merging with the quiet scars hush into a singular resonant silence. The atrium's glow dims, the fissures in the walls widening like parting lids. Pulling you toward the waking threshold. A luminous archway where the court's twilight bleeds into the ordinary world's dawn. Motifs converging one last time, river currents flowing into hearthlights. Unblinking vigils closing in gentle repose, unmade choruses harmonizing into the hush of morning birds. This threshold marks the dream's true conclusion. It's not an abrupt severing, but a gradual emergence from Morpheus's weave. Where heroes of ancient lore carried the gods' gifts and scars back into the mortal coil, tuned to the taboos of bridging realms. You approach the archway, the air lightening to the crisp bite of waking air worth after rain. Faint wood smoke from distant hearths, the subtle salt of coastal winds that evoke the forgotten sea's drift. The veil between realms thins, silks from the half-awake corridor trailing like final threads. And the god's presence lingers in a parting gesture, a soft brush of mist against your shoulder, imprinting the whisper scars deeper, a reminder of the fracture mended through your journey. His insomnia eased by the pilgrim's offerings, yet perpetual, sustaining the court's balance. Historically, in the local legends of the incubation rites at the temple of Amphiaraus in Oropus from the 4th century BCE, dreamers awoke from divine slumbers carrying inscribed tablets of prophecy. Their scars faint marks from the gods, touch-guiding kings and warriors like the Seven against Thebes, rituals that wove the deities' mysteries into waking actions, much like this threshold where the dream's essence follows. Scars a sacred bargain etched in flesh and memory, pulling the ordinary world into the epic's quiet echo. The waking world's pull asserts itself a gentle tug at your core. The limbo scars on your brow clearing to reveal the archways beyond, a familiar chamber, perhaps your own, bathed in the soft light of an autumn dawn. The first rays piercing curtains, like the insomniac sun's reluctant thaw. But the scar that follows reveals itself fully now, not as a single wound, but a constellation of remnants, the pulse scars throbbing faintly in your palm like the black stone. Mimicry, vigil scars ringing your eyes with a subtle gleam that blurs sleep's edge. Discord scars vibrating on your fingers in half notes from the chorus. Quiet scar tightening the throat with swallowed fragments from the feast. Limbo scars hazing transitions between rest and rise, and the whisper scars on your lips exhaling Morpheus's unrest in every breath. A psychological tapestry that binds the dream to the waking, refusing full severance. The quirky detail of this following scar emerges as the ultimate mythic artifact. Woven from the court's essence, the constellation possesses a bizarre function in the mortal realm. Tuning daily rhythms to the gods, whispers glimpses of veiled truths in mundane moments. But only under the taboo of mindful silence, no forcing the dreams recall a rule carried from the Oathkeepers. For the act grants the miracle of lingering insight yet exacts the blood price of scar weave. Where the marks interconnect in quiet hours, replaying the journey's motifs in dreams within dreams. Trading clarity for the consequence of eternal attunement. A cursed relic that mirrors the god's fracture, turning waking life into a subtle vigil. As you cross the threshold, the pavilion fades. The archway contracting like closing eyes. Visions flashing in the scar weave, the temple's obsidian idol reforming in your hearth's glow.
Out the rivers.
Claim restoring a laughter long traded.
Nail the sands.
Veins tracing paths of future quests. The pillowstone's echoes murmuring proverbs in the wind. Oaths live in the cut, now a personal creed. The waking chamber solidifies bed unmade. Window framing, a sky streaked with autumn's Pleiades. The air carrying the real-world scents, fresh bread baking nearby, rain-damp earth from the night's shower, the faint ring of a distant clock like iron from Charon's oars, but softened by the cedar salt jasmine perfume clinging to your skin. Psychological resolution settles like the mosaic's final glow, tensions of the court uncoiling into quiet integration. The scars not burdens, but threads that weave the ordinary into the epic. Heroes' legacies carried forward, Odysseus' homecoming scarred by the sea's eternal call. Blended Norse legends of Sigurd's wakeful dragon slay, wounds humming with Fafnir's curse. Echoing the pantheons where Prometheus's liver regrew daily, the blood price, a perpetual reminder of divine theft. Sensory details ground the emergence, the bed's linens cool against your lingering touch, the dawn light warming without brittleness, birdsong resolving the chorus's discord into natural harmony, the scar's collective throb syncing with your heartbeat. A gentle rhythm that affirms the journey's mend the god's insomnia shared now. A whisper in every exhale that stirs creativity from repose, motifs affirming the logic across realms. A final confessional interlude rises from within. The narrator's voice now, your own merging with Morpheus' calm. I awoke from such a dream once. Scars weaving through my days, and the silence between taught me the weave's continuation. A conclusion that breathes onward in the world's quiet turns. The chamber fully envelops you. The dream's silence breaking into the waking hum, but the scar weave pulses, a companion through the veil. And with that, the dream concludes. It scars the bridge to new beginnings. The waking chamber holds you in its familiar embrace, the dawn's light strengthening through the window to paint the walls in hues of rose and gold, chasing away the pavilion's twilight like the insomniac sun finally. Yielding to Nyx's gentle pull. You sit on the edge of the bed, the linens rumpled from an unseen night's toss. The scar's constellation alive on your skin, the pulse in your palm, a steady reminder of the black stone's intimate mimicry. The vigil rings around your eyes, sharpening the morning's details to crystalline clarity. The discord lines on your fingers vibrating faintly with the distant hum of the city's awakening. The quiet welt in your throat swallowing words unbidden. The limbo bands on your brow hazing the boundary between memory and now. And the whisper lines on your lips exhaling Morpheus's unrest in soft, involuntary sighs. This is the scar weave's true domain, the dream's legacy woven into the mortal tapestry. Where the court's ancient mysteries bleed into the ordinary day's rhythm, turning the mundane into a subtle vigil, heroes' echoes carried forward in the quiet acts of living. You rise, the floorboards creaking underfoot like the amphitheater's marble tiers settling after the choruses fade. The glass cool against your palm where the pulse scar throbs, syncing with the heartbeat of the world outside, leaves rustling in the autumn breeze, the neighbor's door clicking shut, the faint lap of waves from a nearby shore echoing the thought of Earth's current. The scars integrate seamlessly, not as wounds but as attuned senses, the vigilings drawing your gaze to a spider-esque web in the corner, its threads glinting like the fate weaver's looms, unblinking in the light. the discord scars humming along to the birdsong's imperfect melody, half harmonies resolving into the day's natural discord. Psychologically, the weave settles, like the oracle's petals after their cough. Tensions uncoiling into a profound calm laced with anticipation. The dream-esque motifs recurring in waking guise, a coffee mug on the table reflecting the basin-esque drifting futures, steam curling like the veil's half-awake haze, the steam's whisper carrying the god's final exhale. The dream concludes not an end, but in the silence that births the next weave, a truth that stirs creativity from repose, turning routine into ritual. Venturing into the kitchen, the scar weave asserts its function more vividly. The taboo of mindful silence guiding your steps, no forcing the recall, but allowing glimpses to surface organically. As if Morpheus's court lingers in the periphery, you brew tea, the kettle's whistle a quirky echo of the terrace's eclipse-born bells. Steam rising to form fleeting shapes, a feather drifting over sands, a sleeper's unblinking eye in the garden's bloom. The blood price manifesting as a subtle warmth in the cup, thawing the insomniac chill that once gripped the plateau. Historically, in the local legends of the dream interpreters at the Serapeum of Alexandria during the Ptolemaic era, around 200 BCE, scribes recorded waking scars from Morpheus's visitations, tattle-like marks that attuned scholars to prophetic insights. Guiding rulers like Ptolemy I in visions of empire, rituals that blended the deities' mysteries into daily divinations, much like your weave, where the scars grant the miracle of veiled truths in the mundane. The TS steam, revealing a pattern in the vapor, a star omen, aligning with the window's frame hinting at paths yet to cross sacred bargains. Etched in the steam's curlothes, renewed in the cut of morning light. The bizarre temperament of the scar weave unfolds as you sip, constellation interconnecting under the taboo S rule. A pulse scar throb draws your eye to a letter on the counter. Its seal unbroken, like the temple's obsidian lock, the vigil ring sharpening the ink script to reveal unspoken invitations. The discord line vibrates with the paper's rustle, threading half-songs of opportunity into the quiet scar's hush, the limbo band hazing the decision's edge, open now or later, while the whisper scar exhales a gentle sigh that mists the page, scribing faint motifs of the journey, river veins tracing the words, feather barbs in the loops. The cost asserts itself subtly, the blood price of scarweave pulling the marks taut in quiet moments. Replaying the dream's trials in layered echoes, nights where the vigil scars refuse easy sleep. Mornings where the discord hums unresolved melodies, trading the insight for the perpetual attunement. Cursed legacy that mirrors the god's fracture, where waking becomes a half-awake vigil, the self forever bridged between realms. Blended Norse legends surface in the weave-s pole, visions of Odin's self-imposed scars from the runes carving, his one-eye's vigil attuning him to the world's half-visions. Heroes like the Volsungs carrying curse marks that hummed with saga fragments and daily labors. Echoing Greek pantheons where Asclepius's followers bore healing scars that whispered cures in fevered hours. The weave a blood price sustaining the divine spark in mortal flesh. Sensory immersion grounds the epilogue. The tea's warmth blooming like the pyre's restoration. Steam carrying cedar salt jasmine in a waking perfume. The floor's creak harmonizing with the discord scars. Birdsong outside resolving the chorus into natural cadence, the letter's paper textured like the mosaic's pearl. The dawn light filtering through the window like the pavilion's clouds parting. Psychological depth layers the ordinary, the scarweave not a haunting, but an enhancement. Stirring the hearth's restored memory into action, the idol's loss now a catalyst for new oaths. Laughter traded resurfacing in shared smiles with unseen kin. The journey's epic scope narrowing to intimate resolve. Morpheus's unrest shared as quiet inspiration, whispers birthing creations from silence. A final confessional threads through the morning's hush. Your voice narrator and pilgrim entwined reflecting in the steam, the scars followed me into the light. Weaving the dream's silence into my days, and in their gentle throb, I found the weave's true gift a world attuned, where every breath exhales the god's endless stir, concluding nothing but beginning all. The letter opens under your hand, its words a new threshold, scarweave pulsing in affirmation, the dream's bridge holding firm as the day unfolds. And so, the silence breaks into song, the scars eternal companions in the waking dream.